Circle small period, fresh to death killing it, cashing out spinning it, 100 round extended clip, iced out spilling drip, purple and yellow take a sip, fly away and take a trip, pink slip for every rip, circle small period, fresh to death killing it, cashing out spinning it, 100 round extended clip, iced out spilling drip, purple and yellow take a sip, fly away and take a trip, pink slip for every rip, started in a rumor house, Poplar in Montgomery, that was back in 03, breaking down the whole beat. That's my nigga Roman, he'll tell you I'm a OG. That's my nigga Roman, he'll tell you what he sold me. I got what you need, 8 quarters, half an OZ. Out of space high, all day I'm in the nosebleed. 24/7, get the bag, count the proceeds. Said she ain't to please and she proceed to get on both knees. Told her keep her pussy, all I wanted deep throat clean. Rolling up hot boxes, sweating to the OD. On a all-nighter full of road, getting no sleep. In and out of town on the road, paying 4 weeks. Plug with the plug, that deal price is so cheap. I got what you need, 8 quarters, half an OZ. Go get tagged hot as hell, watching for the police. See me in the streets, no nigga, you don't know me. Circle small period, fresh to death killing it, cashing out spinning it, 100 round extended clip, iced out spilling drip, purple and yellow take a sip, fly away and take a trip, pink slip for every rip, circle small period, fresh to death killing it, cashing out spinning it, 100 round extended clip, iced out spilling drip, purple and yellow take a sip, fly away and take a trip, pink slip for every rip.
Serving after crack, I feel like Jesus on that trapper gas. There's an eagle in my lap, double clip that's rapid fast. I don't need no church, I'm in your booth, I'm about to testify. In the jungle pumping weight, nothing like an exercise. Headed to the Rose Bowl, back to Rocker Stadium. Tripping soldiers like a boss, they asking what I pay for them. Shoot and kill for real, we trying to penetrate your cranium. Police never gave a fuck, that's why we always blaming them. Nigga with an attitude, feel like Dr. Dre and them. I don't fuck with suckers, I don't trust them, I don't play with them. Hit them from the back, I hit the door cause I don't lay with them. Always ready to stop by, niggas bout they pay the skill. Bands on me, now we doing donuts in the Lambo, plenty gun, plenty ammo, gotta get it, cause this man no money power. When I step up, going around like a tornado, got a plug, he from Barbados, eating good, stay with
circle small period, fresh to death killing it, cashing out spinning it, 100 round extended clip, iced out spilling drip, purple and yellow take a sip, fly away and take a trip, pink slip for every rip, circle small period, fresh to death killing it, cashing out spinning it, 100 round extended clip, iced out spilling drip, purple and yellow take a sip, fly away and take a trip, pink slip for every rip. State gang, the mob, true sippers, we in too deep. Money boy, money boy, money boy, trade. Money boy, money boy, money boy, trade. Money boy, money boy, money boy, trade. Stay with a bag, I'm cashing them bread. 100 round shooters on deck. These niggas talking, but they not a threat. BB is diamonds and bands on my neck. Jacking my friend. Pour up before, caught me an X. I'm saucing, I'm dripping, I'm wet. I'm trending, I'm thinking, I'm fire, I'm lit. Stay with the bag, I'm cashing them bread. 100 round shooters on deck. These niggas talking, but they not a threat. BB is diamonds and bands on my neck. Jacking my friend. Pour up before, caught me an X. I'm saucing, I'm dripping, I'm wet. I'm trending, I'm thinking, I'm fire, I'm lit. It's a go 10 and 4, it's a bed. On the ground, about to cook me a jet. Niggas mad when I stun and I flip. With precision, I'm gripping the jet. Burn a brain while I'm gripping the net. No dealings, I just want some test. I'm a dog, it's the shame on my mess. Go hard and shout out to my ex. Play if I move it on to the net. Out in Brooklyn, course out with the net. I'm shining, I'm blessed. Like a beacon that runs with a friend. VIP talking shit with some jet. Take it simple when y'all get the mix. High fiving with guys in it. No ego, my life is the shit. Stay with a bag, I'm cashing the bread. 100 round shooters on deck. That nigga talking, but they not a threat. VVS damage and bands on my neck. Jacking my friend. Pour up before, pop me an egg. I'm tossing, I'm dripping, I'm wet. I'm trending, I'm kicking, I'm fire, I'm hit. Step with a bag, I'm catching them jet. 100 round shooters on deck. That nigga talking, but they not a threat. VVS damage and bands on my neck. Jacking my friend. Pour up before, pop me an egg. I'm tossing, I'm dripping, I'm wet. I'm trending, I'm kicking, I'm fire, I'm hit. I get it, I'm gon' pull off in a hurry. First you try to sit into my stripping. No trying to kick it, I'm busy, I'm working. I just suspended, I'm still out here serving. 30s and green, bitch, that's a lane. Pulling up train, form machine. Infrared beam, carbon 15. MoneyBoy train, that with no wing. My bottoms is red, Robert's the green. Hold on my body, I feel like a dream. Go to one cynical, stop watching clean. Real rich and water, but I'm for the team. Fuck your opinion, that's all that I strain. I was 14 when I had a dream. Dollar sign, go for the green. Pop me a bean. Swagging, I'm fresh and I'm clean. Feeling like Jordan, I'm wearing Supreme. Rolling up, smoking Supreme. Infrared beam. Carbon 15. Precise like a surgeon, I won't miss a thing. 24/7, I'm flat with no wings. Bitch. Good morning, people. Good morning. I think I finally got it figured out. I have had to move the damn router box, the internet box around till I got the high signal. Now I got 4 bars in this here particular area of the house. That's the only thing I don't like about it is I don't like where I'm at in the house, but I think it's gonna work. I actually think it's gonna work. I ain't had no problems yet. We finna find out. But at the first sign of trouble, I'm just going to go back and do what we did last night. Come on. Yep, this is where the dude said, "Ooh wee," because he said she a bad mama jamma. They said,
Good afternoon, ma'am. You could be seated. Please state your name and spell it for the record if you could for us.
Kayla Rodriguez, Kayla Rodriguez, Rodriguez.
Thank you. Sketch door, you may inquire.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi,
Can you tell us did you work for?
Orange County Sheriff's Office,
And what is your position with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Deputy Sheriff.
And how long have you been a deputy sheriff?
A little over 8 years, since 2016.
What are your duties as deputy sheriff?
As a deputy, I respond to calls for service, anything from a over with call, like a car being keyed the day prior, or a 911.
what it do, Javal?
So for me, I obtained my bachelor's degree from UCF in criminal justice in 2014. After that, in 2016, I was hired by the Sheriff's Office. Scenarios, defensive tactics, physical training. After that, I do 2 more months with the Sheriff's Office where we go specifically into policy related to Orange County specifically. After that, I do 3 months on the road with a trainer where we are and you slowly learn how.
Okay. It's fucking up, y'all. I ain't finna play with it. I'm finna just go straight to my audio. I ain't got time to play with stream. I don't have time to play today. See, now it's doing too much popping for me. Hold on. Where's my video? Where's my video? Where's my video? All right. Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on, y'all. My Bluetooths have corrupted each other. Because now I'm hearing this shit in my ear and I'm not supposed to. Wait a minute. Okay. What the fuck? Why can't I hear Sarah Boone? What is this shit hooked up to? Bluetooth. Oh, 2 devices. Hold on. Why is that hooked up first? Disconnect. All right. That one should be active. Too much shit connected.
Slowly learn how to handle calls by yourself. Physical training. After that, I do 2 more months with the sheriff's office where we go specifically into policy related to Orange County specifically. After that, I do 3 months on the road with a trainer where we are evaluated periodically through that process. You have a partner, you respond to calls for service during that time, and you slowly learn how to handle calls by yourself.
Do you also undergo continuing training as a condition of your employment?
Yes.
Tell us, what were you working on February 24th, 2020?
Yes.
And tell us, what area of the county were you working in?
Orange County, unincorporated Orange County.
And did you receive a call in regards to this case?
Yes.
And
She
what
cute in her
was that
uniform.
call? What information did you have at the time of receiving the call?
So the dispatcher informed me that a woman called 911. She was actively performing CPR, and that her boyfriend was in a suitcase.
And did you respond out to the scene?
Yes.
And when you responded out to the scene, were you dressed similarly as you were dressed?
Yes.
And just for the record, you have it looks like a standard green uniform on with the tool belt, your firearm, and also radio, body worn camera, patch.
Yes.
Tell us about your body worn camera.
So my body camera is used to capture things when we arrive. So if we are conducting any sort of law enforcement action, we turn our camera on.
When you turn the camera on, tell us, does it immediately capture sound?
It does not. When we activate our camera, it goes back a minute, and the minute that it goes back to, you don't hear any audio for that first minute.
Tell us also about the capacity and the battery life of the camera as well.
So the battery will
Good
last
morning,
the entire
Carlos.
shift typically if it's in a buffering mode. So if we're
Good
not
morning,
recording,
Candy.
it will last the entire shift. As we record, it does drain the battery. So typically we will turn it off if we're sitting in our car for an extended period of time. If we call our supervisor, if we're talking to another deputy on the side away from scene, we will not have the camera recording. If it recorded throughout the entire shift, the battery would not. We would need multiple batteries.
So you actually activate the camera in order to begin recording.
Correct.
Was your body camera operational on this call out?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness which was previously marked for identification in states H, I, and G that have been shown to defense?
You may.
Ma'am, I'm first showing you this marked for identification as states I. Do you recognize that disc?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to review that disc prior to coming to court today?
Yes.
And tell us, what is that disc?
Body worn camera from the day of the incident.
From February 24, 2020?
Correct.
And is that your initials on the disc?
Yes.
And does that disc fairly and accurately represent the contents of your body worn camera?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time I'd like to move what's previously marked for identification in states I into evidence.
Any objections?
Okay.
What was pre-marked as I will be received into evidence without objection as states 4.
And next I'm showing you what's marked for identification as states H. Take a look at that disc. Tell us, what is that disc?
Body worn camera from the day of the incident.
From February 24, 2020?
Yes.
And did you have an opportunity to review that prior to coming to court today?
Yes.
And is that your initials on the disc?
Yes.
And that did fairly and accurately represent the contents of that your body worn camera.
Yes.
Throughout the time, I'd like to move more identification that states H is evidence.
No objection to any of those. What was pre-marked as states H will be received without objection as states 5.
The last thing I'm doing is mark identification at stage G. Do you recognize this is?
Yes.
And tell us, what is that?
Body worn camera from the day of the incident.
From February 24, 2020?
Yes.
And you had an opportunity to review this camera prior to the report,
Yes.
and that credentials on the
Yes.
it fairly and accurately represents your conduct on the body worn camera.
Yes.
You're right, it sounds like the move was to mark identification at stage G into evidence.
No objection. Thank you. What was pre-marked as states G will be received without objection as state 6.
In your honor, request permission to publish stage 4.
You may.
Your honor, maybe get the line of video record.
Yes.
Oh man. This is what we saw. I played the other day when the police officer was asking her what happened. Look, they're showing her going in the house. He gets in the suitcase. This would have been the perfect time to talk about battered wife syndrome and all the other shit her lawyer called out, but nope, it's a perfect day. I don't know. We were good. Good morning, Sonia, if I didn't speak. Yeah, my bad. I kicked myself off the stage. Boring. Can we get to the questions? Shit. We watched this yesterday. We watched this the first day. Don't need to see them record doing it again. Okay, we might be rolling through part 2 then. Let's see, we're at the 6-hour mark. We got 2 months. An hour and 52 minutes left in this one. Are they still showing? They're showing more body cam. Ask some questions, damn it. Okay, I'm skipping through all this.
Ryan Boone?
Yes.
Finally.
While you were at the scene, did you also make contact with Ryan Boone?
Yes.
Did you take a statement from him as well?
I did.
Were all your interactions with the defendant on that day captured on your body worn camera?
Yes.
I have no additional questions.
Thank you. Any cross-examination?
Nope.
No questions, sir. This witness released.
Yes, Your Honor.
They want her to be able to. Oh, y'all don't want to be able to recall her?
Thank you.
Okay. Not subject to recall. And now they approaching again. Her testimony was litty as hell. They just asked her about body cams and shit. And why she had to tell us she got her criminal justice degree from University of Central Florida, I don't know. How that helps the jury convict this woman, I don't know. I don't like her
15 minutes at 3:37. Similar instructions that I've given you previously. Please don't conduct any independent investigation.
So they leaving for 15 minutes. Hold on. Oh, they cooked day one. They went straight through. They were rolling. Let's see. Where's the result? 6:32. Damn, how they get in there for the judge?
Want to get appearances to the state?
On behalf of the state, we made the state.
Yes.
The hour and 20 minutes left in this trial. I very seriously doubt if they're going to talk for 2 hours.
We're going to be seeing
Hour,
suit
20 minutes.
being collapsed from this morning.
Why he keep saying what the hell she got on? Is it common practice for defendants to change clothes during breaks or something and change their appearance? I don't understand why he keeps saying that.
You may be secured again. If you could please raise your hand, showing that you complied with the court's instructions during our last break. The record reflect all jurors have raised their hands. State, you may call your next witness.
States, call Deputy John Martinez.
Good afternoon. Can you state and spell your name for the record, please? Thanks, sir. You may be seated. Thank you.
Morning. You want to say something before I push the button again?
Top of the morning to you, sir.
Yeah, I moved around and shit still ain't working. It just still ain't. I got the strongest signal and it's still doing the same thing. I don't
You
know what the fuck.
got you okay, so I had these issues way back when. Listen, so you thought about ordering some boosters or getting a booster?
No, I have not. You have to send me the link that you did for your booster. How does the booster, what does it
Well,
do?
actually, you can get a booster through your through your Wi-Fi company or your cable company. But I mean, you could get a booster. What did I do? I got those booster things that you plug in. I tried everything. You having the same issues I had but way back when, remember?
Yeah, they're trying to play and then it'll buffer and then it'll kick me off.
I mean, the Wi-Fi signal
It's
is
just,
good until you try to share on YouTube. It's something about StreamYard. It's something about StreamYard that when you try to share, it
yeah,
does so it's
yeah, the little Wi-Fi thing will pop up in the corner and
mm-hmm,
it keeps hitting from one. I think when it's good, there's nothing up, and then it'll show two, and then it'll show one, and it's crazy because
mm-hmm.
I'm plugged right into the modem, so I'm not even
And I
on
did that
Wi-Fi.
too. I did that too. I got an what you call it, ether cord. What is it?
Ethernet cord, Ethernet.
Ethernet cord. I did all of that, and for some reason, it still wouldn't get right. I had to order the boost. I had to get the boosters. Yeah,
and that helped. So the boosters plug into the socket? They plug into the modem. Where they go?
they can plug into
I
the
don't
socket.
think T-Mobile. I don't think T-Mobile got the
Oh, you
boosters.
got T-Mobile Wi-Fi?
Uh-huh.
I'm sure they. I'm sure
Home,
they. Cause I don't. No,
home
I got
internet. And
spectrum.
I used both modems last night because I got two of them, and I used both of them, and neither one of them is acting right. Being
It's something
inside the
about that damn.
motherboard
It's
would
something about
help.
that damn. It's something about that damn StreamYard, and when you go to share,
I
it's
don't like it. I
yeah,
don't like it at
it's
all.
an extender. That's what it is, McCarl. It's a mess.
I need the clown. The clown gonna have to send me some links.
Yeah, he will. He will. He helped me until I got it right. It still echoes sometimes, but for the most part, it do his job. And so we back on the Boone lady.
Yeah, yeah, we on
I'm
Sarah.
sick
We
of her
almost done with that
already.
one.
I'm sick of her
She ain't
already.
did nothing.
Yes,
Sarah
she
ain't did
did.
nothing to
Yes, she
nobody.
did.
She
Yes, she sitting up
ain't
in
did.
court.
Was
Talking about she was playing hide and go seek and killed that man. I'm over it. Damn it.
yeah, killed them good.
Hmm. Oh, let me speak. Hey y'all. Hey everybody. Hey y'all. What y'all doing? Has Trey been
None.
fussing this morning? Cause I don't know.
No, I was already prepared just in case it fucked up, so I wasn't even mad this time. I was already set. I still had my speakers on. The only problem I had was when I cut it off, the YouTube shit went to my headphones, which is connected to the laptop. But I fixed it instantly. I just disconnected it. So no, I was in a good mood. I didn't let it deter me or sway me.
Not deter.
I ain't gonna even try no more. I already know what it's gonna do, and I didn't even wait for it to kick me off this time. When it started lagging, and I could hear it in my ear lagging, I said, "Never mind. Let me just fuck it." Nope.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, Trey. You gotta be good today. I'm feeling much better than I did yesterday.
Oh, you in day 2 of the cabbage? Well, no, you're on day 4 of the cabbage, ain't it?
No, it's
Wait, you
day
started the
3. I
cabbage
wish you
2.
would get it right. It's day 3.
What's today? Wednesday, or Thursday.
Today is Thursday.
So you started Tuesday. Okay.
I started Tuesday, yeah.
Why didn't you start Monday? Who starts a diet on a Tuesday?
I was, my intentions were to start Monday, but I had a little distraction. So and I wasn't finna be eating no cabbage and stuff. And so yeah, I started Tuesday.
I've been eating salads a lot lately. I'm finna eat me a chicken Caesar salad here in a minute.
Keep eating on salad. You don't even know. You really don't even know that you're doing the diet with me if you keep eating salads. Cause see, I can eat salads too. See, eat the salads. You ain't gotta do the cabbage. Eat the salads. Keep eating the salad. But you do know we starting the salads next week.
Okay.
Are you gonna continue?
Yes, I like salad.
Good. I knew you like salad. You bird. You eat like a bird.
Tell us, who is
No offense taken.
Orange County Sheriff's Office. Not the sheriff.
How long have you been with the Orange County Sheriff?
I'm going on my 16th year.
Prior to working for the Orange County Sheriff's Office, do you have any previous law enforcement experience?
I do.
And where was that?
I first started my career with the New York City Police Department.
And how long?
New York City.
About 10 years.
And what was your position with the New York City Police Department?
I was a police officer.
Morning, Snow Cold.
And at the sheriff's office, tell us what are some of your duties as a deputy sheriff?
Respond to calls.
These some
service.
dumbass questions.
My primary function is the school resource.
So nobody in the jury box
And,
knows what
is
police
continuing
officers
training
do
a
at work.
condition for employment with the sheriff's office?
It is.
Tell us, how is it that you became involved in this case?
I was dispatched to this location.
And what was this location?
It was located at 4748 France Lane, apartment number 3.
And is that here in Orange County, Florida?
It is.
And when you responded to that location, who did you first come into contact with?
I came in contact with Miss Sarah Boone.
Do you see Sarah Boone here in court today?
I do.
Could you please point to her and identify an article of clothing she's wearing?
The lady sitting in the middle with the black blazer.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witnesses identify the defendant?
Record will so reflect.
During the time that you were on scene, did you have a body-worn camera?
I did.
And was that body-worn camera activated?
It was.
Were all your contacts with Ms. Boone recorded on that body-worn camera?
It was.
Were other deputies also on the scene at that time?
Yes.
And was Deputy Rodriguez there?
He was.
So would both of your body-worn cameras both capture some of the same time frames?
Correct, yes.
Did you have an occasion to go inside of the apartment?
I did.
And inside of the apartment, what observations did you make?
When I first entered the apartment, I noticed a Hispanic male laying on his back in it looks like a small nook dining area. Later identified Mr. George Torres.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness who's been previously marked for identification as states K and been shown to defense?
You may.
Sir, I'm showing you the mark for identification in states A. Do you recognize that disc?
I do.
Tell us, what is that disc?
It's a copy of my body-worn camera.
And does this body-worn camera fairly and accurately depict the portion of the events that took place on February 24, 2020?
It does.
And are those your initials on the disc?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, this time I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification in states K into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection. What was pre-marked as states K will be received into evidence without objection. State 7.
Your Honor, request permission to publish.
You may. You do the lights.
Back to the bot. Oh, shit.
State recall.
Well, that was quick testimony about him.
Take me, call your next witness.
State recall Melissa Roughgarden.
Ma'am, good afternoon. Can you state and spell your name for the record for us?
Melissa Roughgarden, MELISSAROUGHGARDEN.
Thank you. I'll through your name card.
Ma'am, who do you work for?
I'm employed with the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
What is your position with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Currently, I am a forensic biologist with the forensics unit. Prior to this, I was a crime scene investigator for 5 years.
And how long in total have you been with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
About 6.5 years.
And tell us all the positions you've held.
Those two, a crime scene investigator and a forensic pathologist.
Let's turn to your work as a crime scene investigator. What does a crime scene investigator do?
We respond to crime scenes. We photograph and document those crime scenes through photographs, notes, and sometimes sketches. We collect the evidence, we process the scene, and then we do further processing to the evidence back at our forensics lab.
When you say process evidence or process the scene, can you tell us what that entails?
It depends on the scene and the evidence, but it includes the photographs. We also take swabs for potential DNA. We can also do testing for possible blood and things like that. We also process for the fingerprints, among other things.
What type of training did you need in order to become a crime scene investigator?
Upon being hired with the Sheriff's Office as a CSI, I completed a 16-week training program, which includes in-house processing as well as going out to crime scenes with trained crime scene investigators to observe and then assist, as well as taking on calls with the trained crime scene investigator.
Approximately how many crime scenes have you processed in the course of your time as a CSI?
It would be hundreds. I don't know the exact amount.
Were you working in this capacity as a CSI on February 24th, 2020?
Yes, I was.
And tell us, where did you respond out to?
I responded to 4748 Franz Court, Apartment 3.
And is that in Orange County, Florida?
Yes, it is.
And when you responded to that scene, whom did you make contact?
I made contact with the homicide detective, Chelsea Pretzel.
Did you receive information from the detective?
Yes, that it was a death investigation.
Did you walk the scene with the detective?
Yes.
And tell us, what does it mean to walk the scene with a detective in a homicide?
We go into the scene and just observe. We don't interact with anything and discuss what we see.
When you walked the scene, did you see George Torres?
Yes, I did.
Where was he located?
He was located on the floor in the living room of the apartment.
Did you, with the detective, identify potential items of evidence to be collected?
Yes.
You admitted previously about documenting scenes with photographs. Was that done in this case?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness who's been marked for identification as State's M and been shown to the defense?
May.
Ma'am, I'm showing you who's been marked for identification as State's M. Can you take a look at the contents of State M to yourself and tell me if you recognize the contained within State M?
Yes.
You recognize the contents of State M.
Yes, I do.
Tell us, what is the contents of State M?
They are photographs I took on the crime scene.
Do they fairly and accurately represent how that crime scene appeared on February 24th, 2020?
Yes, they do.
Here at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification that State M into evidence.
How many photographs are there? Do you have?
Let's get 11.
No objection. All right. What was pre-marked as states M will be received into evidence without objection as states 8.
Your Honor, request permission to publish.
You may.
Your Honor, we have the one Boone.
Yes.
Doing the most.
This is the front door to the residence.
State 5. 11.
Yes, the-
State 14.
The slides, it's irrelevant.
The hutch we were just looking at, they're on the side.
Stage 23.
This is the contents of the trash can. You can see 2 wine bottles on the top of the trash.
You also find receipts in that trash can as well.
Yes.
Photo 25.
These are those same wine bottles and 3 Publix receipts that were removed from the trash can.
Did you take these items and collect them into evidence in this case?
Yes, I did.
Photo 32 from the closet.
Yes, this is just in further into that entryway. You can see the living room.
Photo 35 from the closet.
This is another photo of the living room. You can see the victim located on the floor and a suitcase in the bottom corner of the photograph.
Photo 36.
This is another photograph in the living room. This is that wall we saw in the kitchen there with the opening. You can also see a wooden baseball bat leaning against the wall.
All that collected into evidence in this case.
Yes, it was.
Photo 38.
This is, excuse me. This is also a photograph of the living room, just the other side of the room.
Photo 43 from the closet.
This photograph was taken in the living room. You can see the stairs leading to the second floor.
Photograph 45.
This is a photograph of the living room just from the other side of the room. You can see the front door in the middle back of the photo.
Photo 49 from the closet.
This is a more close-up photograph of the suitcase.
Photo 50.
This is a photograph of one of the zippers on the suitcase.
Photograph 51.
This is a close-up picture of that same zipper. There is no zipper pull on it. It appeared to be a small wire of some sort, the pink wrapped around the zipper. This is the zipper on the other side of the suitcase.
That's photograph 52. It's 53 from this spot.
The close-up image of that same zipper. There's also no zipper pull on that one.
Photo 54 from the closet.
This is the contents of the suitcase after just lifting the lid.
Photo 56 from the closet.
More of a close-up image of the items. There were miscellaneous papers and paperwork, some clothing items, and apparent blood inside the suitcase.
What items, what apparent blood was inside the suitcase?
It was observed on the white cap and a necktie, and there was also visible blood just on the interior of the suitcase.
Photo 57 from the closet.
The contents of the suitcase that you can see the white cap more clearly and the blood observed on it.
58 from the closet.
You can see the necktie with blood. It appeared to be silver multicolored. And then there's also a diazepam syringe in the plastic casing there. It was prescribed to the victim.
Photo 61 from the closet.
That is the miscellaneous papers and paperwork that was removed from the suitcase.
Photo 62 from the closet.
That's the suitcase after all of the items were removed.
Photo 64 from the closet.
Yes, that is what appeared to be some like small pieces of paper that appeared to be soaked with blood.
Is it inside of the suitcase?
Yes.
Photo 65 from the closet.
That is the baseball bat that was leaning against the wall in the living room.
Photo 68 from the closet.
This is back to the stairs to the second floor in the living room.
Photo 69 from the closet.
So moving closer to the stairs to the second floor.
Photo 70 from the closet.
Photographing more of the staircase. These are the steps leading to the second floor before I proceed up to the second floor.
This is photo 71 for the record. Photo 72 from the closet.
The upper portion of the stairs leading to the second floor.
How many bedrooms were on the second floor of the unit?
There were 2 bedrooms.
Photo 75 from the closet. What is it?
This is the hallway. You can see a closet in the hallway and then the door to one of the bedrooms.
Does this appear to be a child's room?
Yes, it did.
Photo 79 from the closet.
This is a photograph within the child's bedroom.
But this
Photo
is
86
boring.
from the closet.
This is the door leading to the other bedroom upstairs.
Did this other bedroom also contain a bathroom?
Yes, it did.
Photo 90 from the closet.
This is the bed within that bedroom.
There are 90 pieces of evidence on day one. They really talked this last hour and 20 minutes out. Shocked.
Photo 97 from the closet.
This is the bathroom.
Yeah, master bedroom upstairs.
Yes.
Did you also have an occasion to photograph the defendant?
Yes, I did.
You see the defendant here at court.
Yes, I do.
Could you please point to them and identify our clothing?
She is right there with a black blazer and a pink shirt.
You're going to make record reflecting witnesses identify the defendant.
Record so reflect.
Showing you photo 98 from the composite.
This is the photograph I took of the defendant.
Why is it that you were photographing? That is,
I collected her buccal spot, which is a DNA standard from the inside of the mouth, and it is part of our procedure to photograph that person for identification purposes.
you also document the rest of her body as well.
Yes, I did.
Publishing photograph 101 from St. Composite.
This is a photograph of her hands facing upward.
Photograph 1 and 2.
This is her right hand facing upward.
Photograph 1 and 3.
Her left hand facing upward.
Photograph 1 and 4.
Both of her hands facing downward, so the tops of her hands.
Photograph 1 and 5.
This is her right hand facing downward.
Photograph 1 and 6.
And her left hand facing downward.
What in the hell?
Photograph 1 and 7.
What is any of
This would
this
be of her right
boring
arm.
shit have to do with anything? This is just
Photograph
formalities.
108.
Her left arm.
Come on, G.
110. Did she have any?
You born the jewelry.
You had previously testified that you also collected physical items of evidence from the home as well in this case.
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with been marked for identification as stage C in the charge of defense?
You may.
Ma'am, I'm assuming it was been marked for identification as stage C. Can you take a look at that?
Yes.
Do you recognize that package?
Yes, I do.
And tell us, what is that package?
These are the 2 wine bottles that were collected from the trash can.
Is your name on that package?
Yes, my name is on the Orange County Sheriff's Office evidence label that I filled out, and my initials are on the evidence seal from when I sealed the package.
And then what has your agency case number and location information for this case?
Good
Yes,
morning,
that's correct.
Kimash.
Ma'am, could you open the contents of
Leo.
stage C and look at it to yourself?
Moist voice.
I have to pull them out to recognize the items they're wrapped in.
How do you from?
What the hell is she
What is the
doing?
time, February 24, 2020?
Yes, at the same time I collected them that day.
Your Honor, this time I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as stage C in evidence.
Any objections? What was pre-marked as state C will be received into evidence at states 9 without objection.
Your Honor, request permission to publish.
You may do so.
I got her putting on gloves and she taking out bottles of wine and shit. Oh yeah, them some big bottles. Jeez.
Did you also have occasion to collect the baseball bat from the living room?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I approached the witness who has been previously marked for identification as dates B and shown to defense.
You may.
Ma'am, I'm showing you some marked for identification as state B. Can you take a look at this item?
Yes.
Do you recognize this item?
Yes, I do. This is the wooden baseball bat I collected from the living room.
Oh, it's a bat. She hit the
Yes,
nigga with
it
a
has my name
bat.
on the Orange County Sheriff's Office evidence label that I filled out, as well as my initials on the evidence seal.
It also has your initials and your agency case number as well.
Yes, it does.
Ma'am, could you open states B and look at the contents of it to yourself without displaying it to the court?
Yes.
Without showing it to the court. Well, what's the purpose of that? Couldn't it open? The fuck taking so long? She's not good at opening Christmas presents.
What is contained within states B?
The wooden baseball bat.
And is that bat in the same or substantially the same condition as it was at the time that you collected it on February 24th, 2020?
Yes, it is.
You're at this time like moving this weekend in identification at states B is evidence?
Any objection?
No objection.
What was pre-marked as B will be received into evidence as states 10 without.
Your Honor, requesting it to publish.
You may.
They probably done already made the Lifetime movie. We behind. Well, they'll do it shortly after the trial over with, and she needs some money, and they're gonna sign her to a little deal right quick.
You opened the case into evidence. You also had an occasion to collect the suitcase as well in this case.
Yes, I did.
Prior to placing the suitcase into evidence, did you process it?
I took measurements of the suitcase.
What are the measurements of the suitcase?
It was 28 inches in length, 20 inches wide, and 8 7/8 inches deep.
Whatever the fuck that means.
Your Honor, at the time of meeting, the witness stepped down from the stand, approached the closed area.
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as states A. Tell me, do you recognize this item? Oh, what is this item?
This is the suitcase I collected from the living room.
And how is it that you know that this is a suitcase you collected from the living room?
It has the Orange County Sheriff's Office evidence label.
I don't see how that nigga didn't suffocate. He died because she beat him to death, not because he lost air.
At this time, could you open states A and look at the contents of it too?
Yes.
How little was this nigga to get in this suitcase though? He had to be a small person. She gotta open the evidence.
Does it appear to be the same or substantially the same condition at the time that you collected it and placed it into evidence?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's been marked for identification as states A into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection.
What was pre-marked as A will be received into evidence without objection, states 11.
Your Honor, at this time I ask for permission to publish States A to the jury.
You may.
Can you open the inside of it?
I bet sales for this suitcase have went up like a motherfucker since this trial started. Because we just heard about the suitcase. This is our first time seeing it. Who made that motherfucker? It's durable. Kept a human inside of it while it was flipped up and down steps. Like you would think the human would bust out. Nope, that's some sturdy stitching and zippering going on there. Fuck how much he weigh. How little is this nigga to contort his body to fit in there? I'm just thinking about knees, arms, all of that shit. In that, he had to be a little person. Had to be. He had to be like CMA height or some shit. Five three. That explains it. 5'3". That says it all. Cause I say, no, you can't be tall and fit in that motherfucker. Like that would have been impossible. Like wasn't nothing getting zipped up with no tall nigga in there. This nigga is shorter than Kevin Hart. He is CMA height.
How easy is it?
Yeah, he got in.
Zipper.
Yeah, he got in there willingly. He did. That's why I was like, he had to have been drunk because ain't no way. Like it would have had to been at gunpoint. At that point, I feel like if I get in the suitcase at gunpoint, I'm gonna be killed anyway. So I might as well just argue. Good morning, Felicia. I just argue that junk out. I'd be like, nah, you just fucking kill me. Cause that's what you're gonna do anyway when I get in the suitcase. But again, he didn't die from lack of oxygen. I don't think he suffocated. I think he was beat to death. She was beating him with the bat. She was flipping that motherfucking suitcase up and down the steps, dragging it back. I don't recognize this number. I'm just gonna hit decline.
It was a little difficult.
Yeah, she beat that nigga to death. I don't think it was because he
I have
suffocated.
no additional questions at this time.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Are you also referred to as a medical examiner investigator?
He probably was taller than him.
No, that
She
is not
used
my
to
title.
beat on that
You
man.
do reports up front, the medical examiner necessarily relies on in the process of doing the autopsy and additional investigations.
You would have to ask them.
Who makes the decision at the scene as to what items will be photographed and what items will be taken into custody, what items will necessarily be tested or analyzed?
That's a collaborative effort between the crime scene investigator and the lead detective while on scene.
Who was leading that?
The lead detective was Chelsea Ketzel.
Now, you authored a report in this matter, did you not?
Yes,
And that report was utilized, if you in fact know, by the medical examiner in developing her autopsy report, was it not?
I do not know.
In your report, did you advise the medical or whomever might read your report that in fact the body had been removed from the suitcase by first offenders or first responders?
You
No,
might
I
say
don't believe
first
so.
offenders.
And we know that you have the capacity to do DNA analysis, correct?
No, we process DNA or collect swabs for DNA, and then that's submitted to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for conventional DNA analysis.
You did that with both from the inside of Sarah Boone's mouth.
Her buccal swabs were submitted to the FDLE.
And who made that decision?
The detective and I.
Who made the decision not to bother to do a DNA analysis on the blood from the items within the suitcase or the suitcase itself?
That was a discussion between the detective and I.
And you chose not to do that.
No, we did not.
You assumed the blood inside the suitcase belonged to George Torres, correct?
There was blood observed in the suitcase.
That you don't know who that belonged to because you didn't bother to analyze it or have it analyzed, correct?
The blood was not tested.
Now, State Exhibit B, the bat.
So are you saying that could have been anybody's blood except for the man that was actually in the suitcase? I get it. I get it. It's a stretch, but I get it. It wasn't tested, so it's not officially confirmed. But come on, bruh. I know you're doing your job, but come on. Who else blood is it? On the inside of the suitcase. Who else been inside a suitcase?
You took that into evidence. Was that again a collaborative decision by yourself and the lead detective?
Yes.
And what efforts did you make to have the bat analyzed, given the fact that it was apparently evidence?
It was just collected as evidence from the scene.
Did you advise either the lead detective or anybody else involved with this investigation that there may be matters that could be analyzed when analyzing the bat that would help or assist in the investigation of this matter?
Good morning, treadmill.
It's my job to do the documentation and the collection of evidence.
You said it was a collaborative effort between yourself and the lead detective. So did you participate in that decision?
Nigga, part of the collaborative effort was they told her what the fuck to do and she did it. She don't come in there making no decisions. She wait around to be told what to do. Like it's not, it wasn't her idea to pick the bet up. That's what he getting it. No. But you know what? This is, I hate and like lawyers because this is what he getting paid to do. He sat at home and thought of these questions and shit. He sat at the table and thought of these questions. He sat at home and wrote his opening statements. So we get paid the big bucks for. It was just interesting. Because all of it, they're all storytellers on both sides. They both telling stories. So it's interesting. They should be authors.
We chose to collect the bat and put it into evidence.
So there was a fiber analysis done on the bat to determine whether or not it was used to strike George Torres when he was in the suitcase. Was there not?
Pardon?
It's not. Was it? There was no effort to analyze the bat.
Right. This man asked her a question. She said, pardon, and this nigga just answered for her.
The suitcase, was there not?
Pardon?
In fact, it was not. Was it? There was no effort to analyze the bat. Please.
Can you repeat the question?
If I can remember it. Do you know that there was any effort made in this particular investigation of Sarah Boone, to analyze the bat for fibers?
No, there was not.
And why was that not done?
It was not done.
So wait a minute. I'm with the lawyer on this one. You take the bat into evidence. You don't test the bat for fibers to see if there were any fibers off of the actual human or the actual suitcase. You don't test it. You get a suitcase with blood in it. You don't test it to make sure that it's positive for Jorge, which would strengthen your case. So you just neglected to test any of the evidence. I'm with the lawyer on here. Why? It seems like this was rushed. She guilty, but still, when they fuck up, they have to be held accountable. And it cost them cases sometimes, cost them convictions.
You indicated that you had some interaction with Ms. Boone, is that correct?
I collected her buckle swabs.
Did you speak with her?
In collecting her buckle swabs, yes.
Did you speak to witnesses?
No.
Did you make any determination of other matters that might be of import or evidentiary value when you were going through the house and taking photographs and documenting the interior of the townhouse?
You'll have to be more specific.
Well, how many pictures of the child's bedroom did we see?
Here today,
Yes, ma'am.
we saw the entrance to the bedroom as well as a photograph of the interior of the bedroom.
What was the evidentiary value of that?
It's my job to photograph and document while on scene. So the rooms in the upstairs were photographed and documented.
Did you photograph holes in the wall? possibly made by the victim.
I don't recall photographing holes in the wall now.
If you take photographs of items within the house or throughout the house that may have depicted incidents of prior violence.
If there were holes in the wall, why weren't pictures taken of that? Because those holes could have been from that night. It could have been. They did a sloppy investigation, it seems like this defense attorney is saying, and she's answering no to all of the questions about shit being tested and critical evidence. Now, I believe she was the one passing out the ass whoopings in this bitch, because she said she did, but both of them been to jail for whooping each other. But I think she was passing out ass whoopings because she was taller than this short man.
You'll have to be more specific.
How about bloody pillowcases? Did you make any effort to collect and analyze pillowcases of the rooms that you were photographing?
No.
They didn't tell her to do all this.
You have significant experience with zippers,
I use zippers regularly, yes.
enough to have an opinion as to whether or not a zipper is stuck or not.
Is what? Sorry?
You testified on direct that the zipper was a little tight.
Just that it was difficult without the zipper pulls to use the zipper.
That was your opinion.
Yes, from opening the suitcase here today.
You only tested it today?
Pardon?
You only today, after the first time, tested the ability to pull open the zipper on the suitcase?
No, I'm saying it was difficult today.
He frazzling her.
Any redirect examination?
Yeah.
Oh no.
In this case, you documented the entirety of the house as resolved.
Yes.
So every room in the house.
They were all taken overall
So
photographs.
how you missed the holes then?
Walls in the house.
In the overall photographs, yes, they weren't all individually photographed, no.
And you did not document or note any type of holes in the wall or any type of damage to the walls, anything like that.
Not the walls, no.
Is that something that would have been documented both photographically and also within your report?
Yes.
You also, as we've seen in the composite, saw the victim where he was laying in this, correct?
Yes.
Was the victim, did he have blood on his mouth and on his face?
Yes, he did.
Did he have open wounds on his body?
There was blood coming from his nose and his mouth. There was also some other areas, like defects noted on his body.
You also made contact with the defendant too as well.
Yes.
Did you know any other wounds or cuts or anything else that was not documented that you haven't testified?
No.
So no wounds, nothing on it.
Not that I recall, no.
No further questions.
Thank you. Can this witness be released?
Yeah.
Drugs, can this witness be released?
Judge, we'd like her to be on call.
Subject to recall, ma'am.
Given.
The only person they accepted the recall is the two police officers.
Parties approach.
I think they done for the day on that one because it's 7:52 and they at 7:43. All right, we're going to day 2. Let's get it cracking. Let's get forward. Day 2 is 9 hours and 14 minutes. We'll try to get through this all today, but not in one time, just between this morning and tonight. Truth, you got a live schedule?
Not yet. But how much longer you going on schedule? How much longer you going right now?
You know, the normal 3 I got planned.
Okay. Well, okay. Let me see, 2 more hours. Okay, I'll go back 12.
Well, damn, they ain't started. Wait, 30 minutes in. That's good. So that takes an hour off this live.
I'd like to say over to Sarah Boone.
Yeah, 47 minutes at least.
Like all members of our panel have raised their hands. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. We can't start to you all yet here, and I appreciate it.
You swear to affirm the testimony you give? Yes, thank you.
Good morning, Doctor. Could you please state and spell your name for for us?
Sarah Sadovich, SARAZYDOWICZ.
I like her voice.
Thank you.
The doctor.
Good morning, ma'am. Can you tell us, what do you do for a living?
I'm a forensic pathologist.
And who do you work for?
I work for Orange County. We cover Orange County and Osceola County.
Good point,
How
Snowcone.
long have you been a forensic pathologist?
I've been in this office for about 12 years and then 1 year in Tampa, so about 13 years.
And what type of educational background do you have to be a forensic pathologist?
So I have a bachelor's degree in kinesiology from the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I went to medical school in Kansas City, Missouri. After that, I went to Cleveland, Ohio to do a 1 year rotating clinical internship. After that, I went back to the University of Wisconsin. I did my residency in anatomic pathology and clinical pathology. 2 fellowships or subspecialty training. One is in cytopathology from Northwestern University in Chicago. And then I did my forensic pathology fellowship in Tampa.
In other words, she educated like a motherfucker.
Something that you must maintain in order to hold that position.
Yes, I have to do continuing education for my board certifications, which is in anatomic pathology, clinical pathology, and forensic pathology. And I also have to do separate continuing medical education to maintain my medical license for the state of Florida.
So tell us, what are your duties as a medical examiner?
So we're involved in what's called the medical legal investigation of deaths. And that just means that we investigate certain types of deaths. And there's a Florida statute or Florida law that states which types of deaths that will be involved in investigating. And in general, there are deaths that are not natural, so accidents, suicides, homicides, or deaths that are natural but maybe unexpected. Those are the types of cases that we're involved in. And again, that Florida statute lays out exactly which types of cases that will be involved in. And the reason we're involved in that is our goal is to determine cause of death and manner of death in those individuals that we're investigating.
Could you tell us what an autopsy is generally speaking?
So an autopsy is also called a postmortem or after death examination. And there are kind of 2 main parts to it. The first part is what's called an external examination, which is just as it sounds. So that's making observations about an individual. So hair color, eye color, height, any sort of unique markings like scars or tattoos. And at that time, we're also looking for any external signs of diseases or injuries. After that, we go to what's called the internal examination. So that means that we open the body cavities, we remove all of the organs and dissect all of the organs. And again, as we're doing that, we're looking for any signs of diseases or injuries that might help explain why that person died. And we can also add ancillary tests or other tests. So things like toxicology, microbiology. It's a little bit dependent on each case, but we have options for other testing as well.
Can you tell us, what is the cause and manner of death? Is this something that you document?
So cause of death is either a disease or an injury that ultimately results in an individual's death. Right? So it's very individual and unique to that individual. Manner of death is a way to categorize or group similar types of deaths together. And for manner of death, there's only 5 choices. So there would be natural, accident, suicide, homicide, or undetermined. So those are the manners of death.
In your career, approximately how many autopsies have you performed?
Around 3,000.
And have you previously testified as an expert witness in court?
Yes.
How many times?
Between 75 to 80.
And in what areas have you testified as an expert witness?
Forensic pathology.
Turning our attention to this case, did you perform the autopsy?
Yes.
And what were your findings as to cause and manner of death?
So the cause of death, which I put on the death certificate, is positional asphyxia with environmental suffocation. And the manner of death I classified as homicide.
Yeah. When you perform your autopsy, what information do you have at the time that you began that examination?
It's incredibly variable. I can have a lot of background information. Sometimes I have none. It just depends on the particular case.
In this case, what information were you provided?
So the information I had was that the decedent was with his girlfriend, and at some point in time in the night, he got into a suitcase, which was then zippered shut. At another point at time, I believe she went to bed, And
That
then,
gives new meaning to
the next morning,
play
discovered that
stupid
she was still in the
games, win
suitcase. I think
stupid
that was about an
prizes.
11-hour time frame from the information that I have.
You mentioned asphyxia. Can you explain for us what asphyxia is?
And so asphyxia is a very general term. It would be kind of like saying, I got a car, right? That's very generic, and there are many different types of cars out there, right? So asphyxia simply means lack of oxygen or inadequate oxygen for an individual. And there are different categories of asphyxia. So you can have suffocation, which just means that there's obstruction of the airways. So that could be smothering, that could be somebody choking on a piece of food, or maybe just being in an environment where there's not enough oxygen in the air to sustain that individual. There's a category called strangulation, that would be compression of the neck, either blood vessels or airways. There's another category called mechanical asphyxia. That can be when the body is in an unusual or abnormal position where the actual mechanics of breathing can't occur. So that can be the position of the body, or it can be, like, let's say if a heavy object fell on somebody and you simply can't breathe because of the weight of that object. That would be a mechanical asphyxia.
Where Lil Woody?
Different types of asphyxia.
When he
And there are also
testified.
other, categories as well that are much less common.
Is there a most common type of asphyxia?
The most common would be ligature compression of the neck. So that would be like an event of hanging. That would be the most common that we would see.
You also mentioned environmental suffocation. Could you tell us a little bit more what that means in more layman's terms?
So that just means there's not enough oxygen in the environment that the person is in. You could think of somebody who's in an enclosed space where there's a fixed amount of oxygen. So as that oxygen is, as that person is breathing, they're using up all the oxygen. And once it's gone, there's no oxygen left. Or you could think of maybe people who are climbing Mount Everest. There's not as much oxygen up there, and that's why they have oxygen tanks. So it just means that the amount of oxygen available in the air around that person is not enough to sustain them.
In this case, what can you tell us about how long George Torres was in that suitcase?
There's not a really good way for me to give you a time frame as to how long he was in that suitcase. Again, because there was both the component of positional asphyxia, being in an unusual position for a period of time, and then also the environmental suffocation component. Because within that suitcase, certainly there's going to be oxygen, but it's not going to be the same as if you were sitting in a room like this. And because there are those multiple components happening at the same time, there's not a really good way to estimate or say with scientific certainty, oh, he was in for X amount of time. There's really not a good way to do that.
How about, is there any good way to approximate or determine the time that George Torres died?
There's not a good way to do that either. Again, because there are so many different components at play at this time of his death. Sitting in a normal room like this, the percentage of oxygen that's available is about 20 to 21%. If that were to drop to 10 to 15%, the person can be impaired with judgment, they can be impaired with activity. Once that percentage drops between 8 to 10%, most people will lose consciousness. And at a percentage of 8% oxygen or less, that's when we would expect the death to occur. And so again, there's not a really good way to measure the amount of oxygen that would have been available to him in that suitcase, in addition to the fact that he was in an unusual position.
What position were you able to determine he was in that suitcase?
I wasn't able to see what position he was in. By the time that our medical legal death investigators were at the scene, he was already removed from the suitcase. Based on some of the findings, I favor that he was most likely in a fetal type position. So knees flexed, arms flexed, and the head most likely flexed forward. But again, that's from my findings. I didn't see what position he was in.
What side of his body would he be resting on in this fetal position?
That's most likely his left side. However, I do say the caveat that some of the findings are dependent on time, meaning that, if that suitcase had been moved or flipped over, that could be different from what I was seeing at the time of my examination.
Tell us, what is skin slippage?
So after death, the body goes through a series of progressive changes. And one of those changes is skin slippage. And what that does is it tells me that that person is a little bit further away from the actual time of death. So it's not something that's going to occur immediately after death for most people. It's something that would occur a little bit later on in that process of changes that happens after death.
And tell us, what is rigor mortis?
So rigor mortis is also called the postmortem stiffening of muscles. And again, that's one of the changes that occurs after death. Most of the times that will occur before we see skin slippage. But these changes are very variable from individual to individual, and it also depends a lot on the environment the person is in. So for example, those changes that we're going to see happen more quickly in a warm environment. If somebody who maybe is engaged in a physical or violent struggle, those changes are going to occur more rapidly. And then it also depends on the person themselves, you know, their relative size, their relative health. Those things can all impact the changes that we see after that.
How does skin slippage and rigor mortis inform your findings about how long George Torres was likely in that suitcase?
So again, the time frame that I had was about 11 hours, just from the last time that he was known to be in a suitcase versus the time that he was found. So I'm basing it off of that. So about an 11-hour time period. Well, when I did my examination, the rigor mortis was already dissipating or leaving. Also, there was some skin slippage. And so if he had not been in the suitcase, if he had been out of the suitcase, I would not expect that advanced amount of change. It's compatible with him being in that suitcase for a longer period of time. It would have been warmer. And also if he had been, you know, struggling to get himself out, you know, engaging in that physical activity, those are things that are going to accelerate or speed up that process. So my findings at the time of the examination are compatible with that 11-hour time period, or somewhere around there.
Additionally, did you note any injuries to the body of George Torres?
Yes.
These injuries that you noted to the body of George Torres, did you document them on what's called a body chart?
Yes, the diagram on a body chart, and we also take pictures as I'm going through my examination.
Your witness was previously marked for identification and showed to events at stage bar.
Okay.
I'm showing you this marked for identification at stage R. You recognize this document?
Yes.
And can you tell us what is this document?
That's a copy of my body diagram. Oh, it's a copy of my body diagram.
It really represents the diagram that you created in this case for George Torres.
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to move what's previously marked for identification as stage R into evidence.
What was pre-marked as states R will be received into evidence without objection at stage 12.
Your Honor, the document is published.
Yes.
On this body chart, can you describe for us and point out what was the first blunt impact injury that you identified?
So there were some blunt impact injuries to his head. I don't think it's on this one, but there were some blunt impact injuries to his head right up here on the eye and on the mouth area.
And then, did you notate any injuries to his hand?
Yes, so there were some ecchymoses, or you can think of that as like a large kind of bruise on both hands.
What other blunt impact injuries did you identify?
So there's a series of ecchymoses on the left side of the back, which right about here.
And any others?
There were some on the forearms as well.
And you use this body chart, you say, in addition to photographing the injury that you got, correct?
Yes.
As part of your examination, I believe it's on the body chart itself, do you document the height and weight of the person as well?
Yes.
And what was the height of Mr. Torres?
So technically for us, his length, height is a measurement that's taken less than one is standing. So his length was 62 inches, and his weight was 103 pounds.
103, 103 pounds. They finna, what's up, Rambling? I guess they finna tell her how many inches 72 is, but this nigga was 103 pounds. She was whooping Jorge ass.
In regards to the blunt impact injuries, How is it that you come to the conclusion that these injuries were the result of blunt impact?
So these are typical wounding patterns for blunt force trauma. And when I say blunt force trauma, that can mean something striking a part of the body, or on the other hand, it
That
can be the
nigga
body
was malnourished.
and that causes injury to the skin, to the soft tissue, and sometimes the deeper tissues, depending on how severe or how strong that blunt force trauma is.
Are these injuries consistent with a person being struck with a baseball bat?
They could be, yes.
Are they consistent with a person being pushed down a flight of stairs?
They could be, yes.
Can you say whether or not these injuries occurred while George Torres was in the suitcase?
No.
Why is it that you cannot say that?
So all of these injuries seem to have occurred around the same time, meaning that they're relatively acute or new. They're not things that are healing or something that happened last week. So they all occurred around the same time. But you can't really look at a bruise or a contusion and say, oh, that happened 2 hours ago. There's not a good way to do that.
Are these injuries consistent with them occurring while he was inside the suitcase?
Yes, they could be.
As part of your examination, do you also check the toxicology of George Torres?
Yes.
And is that something that's pretty standard in any autopsy?
Yes.
And what were the toxicology results for George Torres?
So there was a blood alcohol level of 0.139 milligrams per deciliter, and there was also caffeine and nicotine detected as well.
That level of alcohol, is that over the legal limit in the state of Florida to drive?
Sure. So for driving under the influence, that's a 0.08. So that is higher than that.
What does that alcohol level at the time of your autopsy tell you about George Torres's level of impairment 11 hours earlier?
So I don't necessarily know that it was 11 hours earlier, but it was at the time of death, at or near the time of his death. That's what the blood alcohol level was. So at that level, everyone reacts a little bit differently to alcohol, and some of it has to do with whether or not somebody is accustomed to drinking alcohol or if they've never had alcohol. So you can develop tolerance. But at that level, there's going to be impairment of judgment. There can be impairment of motor skills. There can
Like
be slurring
getting
of
in the
words,
suitcase.
something that's called disinhibition or lack of inhibition. And again, it's really variable from person to person, but those are the common things that you would see at that level.
Would that level of alcohol impair the ability to problem solve?
It can, yes.
You also stated earlier that you document your autopsy findings also photographed, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with remark identification that states Q has been shown to defense? Ma'am, I'm showing you with remark identification at stage Q. Did you take a look at the composite photographs yourself and then look up what you're finished? Ma'am, do you recognize these photographs?
Yes.
Are these photographs a portion of the photographs that you took in your autopsy of George Torres in this case?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately represent how he appeared, how his injuries appeared to you at the time you performed your autopsy?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to move the previously marked identification as stage Q into evidence.
No objection. What was pre-marked as states Q will be received into evidence without objection. It states 13.
Come on.
There's some ecchymosis around the left eye. This picture is a little bit hard to see, but I think there's another one coming up. There's also an area of ecchymosis up here on the left side of the forehead, with also some swelling associated with that. The lips have some contusions and small lacerations. And then on the left shoulder here, you can see a little bit of some ecchymosis here, or again, ecchymosis are like big bruises.
Should we photo 2 from State's composite? What are we looking at?
So this is his right arm near the elbow. And right here, you can see this kind of darker area. So this looks similar to an abrasion, but it's actually, it's what's called drying artifact. And again, this is one of the reasons that I think that he was in that suitcase for a little bit longer. Most likely that was a pressure point where part of that suitcase was resting on his elbow in that area. And then after death, that tissue dries out, and that's the discoloration that you're seeing there.
Coming to States 3 from the composite.
So here you can see a little bit better. I don't know if you can get a feeling for this, but this area is what we call edema or swelling. So this whole area is edema. It's a little bit discolored, so ecchymosis. And then again, really at the corner of the eye here, you can see that darker discoloration. And so those are injuries from blunt force trauma.
Stage 4 from the composite.
So this is the left shoulder and arm. So you can see this kind of red to purple area. So this is all ecchymosis, and then a couple of linear abrasions or scratches.
Stage 5 from the composite.
This is the same area, just a little bit closer up, so you can see this whole area of ecchymosis. It's a little bit variegated, differential in color, but again, that's all blunt force trauma.
And what part of the body is this one looking at?
This is the left shoulder.
Stage 6 from the composite.
That's the same area, but in this picture, we have a scale or the ruler.
And why do we use scale rules?
That's just to give an idea of how big the area is or how large the injury is.
Stage 7 from the composite.
So this is the left forearm and hand. And you can see the area right here, just a little bit red to purple. And then also right here on the left hand, right here and here. Those are all areas of ecchymosis, again, blunt force trauma. Just a little bit of a different angle, so you can see, and a little bit of the elbow too here, but you can see all these areas of ecchymosis.
White noise
These
is
linear
terrible.
abrasions in the mid-back.
Scratch marks for
They could be scratch marks. They could also be blunt impact, more of just a straight up blunt impact, especially being in that suitcase if there are objects in there.
what is the discoloration that we see around his shoulders and then some other spots?
Sure. So you're talking about this area?
Yes.
So that's called livor mortis or lividity, and that's one of the changes that we see again after death. And basically what that is it's postmortem after death, settling of blood in the blood vessels. And so it's dependent on gravity and it's dependent on the person's position. So what I mean by that is we're seeing it on his back because after the time of death, at some point in time, he was more positioned on his back. And the areas that are lighter, that's because for a couple of reasons. It could be the position of the body, meaning that it's not in a gravity dependent position, or there could be something pressing on it. So either one of those.
Stage 12 from the closet.
So those are those linear abrasions just shown a little bit closer up.
13 for the composite.
And the same, but with a scale.
Page 14.
So now you're seeing the left side of his back and also the back of his left arm. And you can see these areas here of ecchymoses, and these are a lot darker than some of the others that we've seen. One of the things that I did is I looked underneath the skin in these areas because they're so much darker and so much more dense. So I wanted to see if there was injury of the deeper tissues. So these areas are associated with hemorrhage or bleeding into the skeletal muscle, so the deeper tissues. And so that's just indicating more force applied to that area.
And when you did your interpretal exam, did you examine this area and did that more fun?
Yes.
Page 15 for the composite.
And that's showing those areas a little bit closer up. So you can see that they're much more dense. There's at least 3 distinct areas here. There could be more than 3 impacts, but there's at least 3 separate ones that can be seen.
Page 16 for the composite.
This is just showing the upper back and the back of the neck. We've got a linear abrasion right here on the back of the neck, and these were the ones shown in earlier pictures.
And page 17 for the composite.
And this is just showing the same area for the back and the back of the arm, but just at a different angle.
So we've discussed and seen that many different injuries. In total, how many more impact injuries did you identify?
I can't give you an exact number. Again, you can have multiple impacts in a very close area. So it can be hard to discern each one. They can overlay each other, or they can be so close to each other. But at least 5 to 6, most likely more than that.
And when you were going through your body chart as well, and I guess we also saw some of it photographically, you also mentioned impact to the left side of the head.
Yes.
And I believe that was subgenital.
Subgenial. So kind of similar to what I was describing on the back. I looked at the underside of the scalp. So in those areas on the left side of his forehead where there was the edema, when we reflect, when we fold the scalp over, there was hemorrhage or bleeding that went through the entire scalp and was deposited on the skull. There was no associated skull fracture, and there was no bleeding inside of the skull, but it was all in the scalp and deposited on the outer surface of the skull.
So under the skin, but not under the skull.
Correct.
Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you. Any cross-examination? Yeah.
Uh-oh. What you gonna say, defense? Let's get it.
Good morning.
Somebody.
My name is James Owens, and I'm one of the lawyers that represents Sarah Van here today. I've got a few questions.
Sarah got 3 lawyers.
Can we first talk about the toxicology?
She got a dream team.
The alcohol. You said you've done approximately 3,000 autopsies, and of those autopsies, how many years would that have been?
12 years.
So when you first got down from Tampa, I think you were up in the Northeast, you came down here to Tampa, that's when you started?
Yes.
And you would agree you've interpreted toxicology results in all or most of those cases?
Most, yes.
And you did order the blood alcohol test of the decedent in this case? And you said he was a 0.38?
No, 0.13.
0.138. And you also ordered the vitreous level?
Yes.
Alcohol as well? And the result was a 0.213?
Yes.
And you would agree that's about 3 times the limit?
Close, yes.
Now, you would agree that at those levels, there are some pharmacological effects from in the body?
Yes.
I know you mentioned some, but you agree that level of alcohol in the body would impair somebody's judgment?
For most people, yes.
And their decision-making abilities?
Yes.
Like
And
getting
it
in
would
the
release
suitcase.
inhibitions,
Yes.
and they would be more apt to take risks that they otherwise would not.
Yes.
And of course, it would impair motor skills and potentially loss of balance.
Yes.
It would also impair coordination,
Yes.
hand-eye coordination, as well as fine motor skills.
Yes.
It also impairs memory, alcohol does.
Yes.
So there are lots of effects that ethanol has on the body.
Yes.
Now, you're aware in this case that George Torres, the decedent, stepped into the suitcase under his own power in a game of hide and seek.
That's how it's reported to me, yes.
Do you have any evidence to dispute that?
No.
Can you tell us when Mr. Torres drank the last drink he had prior to getting in the suitcase?
That I can't tell you because, if somebody had been drinking either periodically throughout a time period or continually throughout a time period, that's difficult to say.
So he could have stopped drinking an hour before he got into the suitcase, or 5 minutes before he got into the suitcase, or 4 hours before he got into the suitcase.
Yes.
We just don't know.
Correct.
Do you have any idea at the time of the autopsy whether or not he was in the elimination phase?
So he was in the metabolic phase, yes.
The elimination phase is what I refer to it as. But
Yes.
right now, I want to talk about time of death determination. It's fair to say that you did not go to the scene that day that Mr. Torres was found.
No, a medical legal death investigator from our office went to the scene.
So there was an investigator with your agency named Ashley Hammermeister
Yes.
that went to the scene.
Yes.
And she would have prepared a report.
Yes.
You would have reviewed that report.
Yes.
Do you agree that fire and rescue assessed Mr. Torres at 1:07 p.m. on that day, February 24th of 2020?
Yes.
Does that sound about right based on your case file?
Yes.
And so this investigator that we mentioned, she did not arrive on scene till 6:27 p.m. So nearly 6 hours after the body was discovered, she arrived.
Yes.
And the body was laying supine, stretched out
Yes.
in front of the suitcase.
Yes.
Now you examined and assessed the body of Mr. Torres at the time of the autopsy,
Yes.
and you said that the body was ambient temperature.
Yes.
Is that the normal air temperature we're in today?
Whichever environment you're in, yes.
So the body was not stored in a cooler for 24 hours.
No, the body was stored in the cooler, but in the mornings when we get there, the bodies are brought out of the cooler.
Okay. How long had the body been out of the cooler before it was examined by you? Do you know?
Most likely an hour to an hour and a half.
Now you said that the lividity was in the back, correct?
There's lividity in the back and also on the left side of the body as well.
And you agree the body is stored at the morgue in on site.
Correct.
Now, were you aware of the last time that Miss Boone, my client, actually saw her boyfriend alive or observed him in the video, in the suitcase by video from home?
I think in the report it was around 12:30 or 1 in the morning, somewhere around
Have you
there.
looked at either one of those videos from her phone?
I briefly saw one that the detective showed me.
Do you know if that was the 2-minute video or the 20-second video?
I believe it was the shorter one.
So would it be fair if I said the time last seen was around 11:30? Would you dispute that or?
No.
Okay. So really, from the time, I guess it was 11:30 that evening with the videos, and then you understood that the body was found around 12 hours later the next day or so. Would you agree that the death occurred sometime within those 2 periods of time?
Yes.
We don't know exactly when that is. So it would be a guess if we tried to speculate about that.
Yes.
Now, considering the 3,000 autopsies, how many cases have you ruled the cause of death as positional or postural asphyxia?
A handful of times. It's not very common.
So about 5 times or less?
Yes.
And we're going to talk about environmental suffocation in a little bit, but let's talk about this positional asphyxia component. What was your ruling in those 5 cases that you ruled that it was positional asphyxia? What was your ruling in terms of your diagnosis?
Relevance.
Approach. Environmental suffocation is a lack of oxygen. Do you agree?
Yes.
Now, how many of those cases of the 3,000 that you've done where you found environmental suffocation?
Probably 2 to 3.
So very few.
Yes.
In a positional asphyxia case, that's kind of an example. Like you get stuck in a hole, and as you breathe, you sink deeper into the hole, and it tightens.
It can be anything that impairs the actual physical aspect of breathing. So that could be if the neck is flexed forward, so that way cutting off the air supply up towards the top of the head. That could be something compressing around the torso, so not being able to take a full breath. So those are examples of
Another example may be falling out of a tree stand and getting suspended upside down,
yes.
or the majority of the blood gets in the top half of the body.
Yes,
Would you agree in those type of situations that the deaths occur fairly quickly, usually?
it can. It depends again on the situation.
And you said Mr. Torres was 5'2" and 103 pounds.
Yes.
Do you know how big the suitcase was that Mr. Torres was in?
I don't have the exact measurements with me.
So if I told you the measurements, you wouldn't know one way or the other.
You know, I think they were described to me, and I saw the pictures from the scene, and I was able to review crime scene photos to see what the actual suitcase was like.
Do you know the crown and rump length of Mr. Torres?
No.
Did you do any demonstrative study on the suitcase to determine what kind of spacing he would have inside that enclosure?
No.
And you don't know the position that Mr. Torres or his orientation at the time that he was in the suitcase was?
Again, I favor a fetal position, but again, I didn't observe him in the suitcase.
But you don't know exactly what the positional component was that caused, or what led you to believe caused his death.
Correct. I mean, based on his stature and what the suitcase was, he would have had to have flexed up hips and knees to be able to fit into the suitcase.
Based on what you said, you agree you didn't know how much Mr. Torres would have been able to move and stretch his various extremities inside the suitcase, did you?
No.
So you would agree that his repositioning inside the suitcase would have been easier if he didn't have so much alcohol in his bloodstream.
I don't know that I would agree with that.
Excuse me?
I don't know that I would agree with that.
Well, you say his fine motor skills would be impaired by the alcohol.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you meant his ability to just move.
So to reposition himself inside this, that would be limited to some degree by the alcohol he consumed.
It could be. I mean, that's not really fine motor skill.
What the use of
His ability to move around in the suitcase is constricted by him being in the suitcase. It's like saying your ability to move around in the trunk. It's a trunk. It's only so much you can do.
hands to unzip the suitcase would be affected by the alcohol that he had consumed.
Sure, that could be.
Okay. Now, the environmental suffocation deals with the lack of oxygen.
Yes.
Right? And due to that insufficient oxygen that we breathe in the air, so you essentially run out of the oxygen in the space.
Yes.
So I guess years ago, how this sometimes would occur was a child would somehow get into an old refrigerator and it would be enclosed, so it was airtight, and eventually you would run out of oxygen.
Yes.
You agree with that?
Yes.
And I think you said the normal makeup of air has about 20% oxygen.
Yes.
So we had either a decrease in the oxygen levels or a low concentration of oxygen.
Yes. Yes. And also, keep in mind that while he's in there, every time he's exhaling, he's pushing out carbon dioxide. Okay, so again, whatever oxygen is there is most likely diminished because it is an enclosed space. It doesn't have to be no oxygen, but it's decreased from what we would have in a normal room. But every time that he's exhaling, there's more carbon dioxide that's in that space as well. So that displaces any oxygen that might be there too.
So what volume of air do we inhale and exhale when a normal breath is?
Well, it depends. I mean, you can take a deep breath, you can take a shallow breath. It depends. And then there's also the rate at which people breathe. So that's variable.
So if it was average, did you say 500 milliliters on
It
it?
depends on the person.
Well, would you agree that at rest, you take a normal number of breaths per minute of 12 to 14?
That's would be considered the normal range. Yes.
So 6 to 7 liters per minute?
Yes.
Do you know the volume of room air contained in that suitcase?
No.
Do you know how porous the fabric of that suitcase was?
No.
Did you run any tests on the suitcase?
No.
Were you aware that the suitcase, the lock on it or the zipper on it was broken, the pull handles were broken?
Yes, I did know that.
Do you agree if there is a portion of the zipper that's open, that air can travel in and out of that space?
Yes.
Do you know what the anticipated exchange of gases would be through that fact?
No.
Do you know if, the suitcase was out in the rain and it rained, do you know whether or not rain or the liquid would pierce the interior?
I don't know.
So from what I get, no studies were done on the suitcase.
Not that I'm aware of.
So we don't know that zipper being busted, what exchange of air could go in and out.
Correct.
I think you said there are physiological effects once the value or percentage of oxygen is decreased from the normal.
Yes.
You said 8 to 10%, you become unconscious.
Yes.
and then a value of less than 8% of death occurs.
For most people, yes.
Excuse me?
For most people,
And the normal oxygen saturation in adults and children is 95 to 100%.
yes.
So it decreases, the oxygen decreases less than 10%. Someone would lose consciousness and die within less than 30 minutes.
So that's hard to give a time frame on that. Studies that have been done show that the oxygen content is anywhere from 4 to 6. Unconsciousness can occur in less than a minute, death within minutes. But those have been empirical studies.
Right, and I know that's kind of, maybe you tell me, is that kind of why you gave the two different diagnoses, the environmental and the positional? Is because the environmental may have had an effect or the positional may have had an effect, you're not sure, so you listed them both?
Not that I'm not sure. I think that both mechanisms were at play at the same time, and that's not unusual in deaths. There can be multiple factors occurring at the same time.
But you don't know the percentages, 50% for one or 70% for one, 30% for the other. You don't know.
No.
But you agree in concert, if these two causes, the positional as well as the environmental, if they were acting in concert, that would render a relatively short amount of survival time.
I can't say.
You just don't know.
No.
Now, we talked about these blunt force injuries, correct?
Yes,
Would it be fair to the jury to say that there were no broken bones?
there were no broken bones.
And would it be fair to say that the blunt force injuries on his body that the jury has seen here today that did not contribute to the cause of his death?
Not likely.
And I think you didn't put that anywhere in your report.
No. I included it in my report. I did not include it on the death certificate.
That's the reason or cause, contributing cause of the death.
Correct.
Just put up a couple of those. It's, weren't you aware that the baseball bat was down in this case?
I didn't hear about that until later.
When did you first know about it?
That might have been around the time that I was sitting for a deposition, but I can't quite remember.
Remember the position already?
I don't have the facts in front of me when I was deposed.
I'm going to show you this. It's not 14. And it's not 13. Here's a picture of 14. You see the, you said that some type injuries,
Yes,
and you've seen it right away, kids baseball.
yes.
And if you were to swing that and hit someone, it's someone's body, it's a suitcase, the blunt force, that would be a linear line across that person.
It could be depending on the position of the body, the position of the suitcase, and the position or how the object came into contact.
What is linear, a linear injury?
So linear injury is if you think, linear, it's more like a line.
Now, if you took the barrel of that, the very end of it, and you out into the suitcase with the barrel of that, would no spots there in this exhibit. Is that consistent?
That's compatible with that. Yes, that's compatible.
And here's the close-ups. Picture 15. Again, close-up. Second question. Would that be consistent with how he, the suitcase, if he's in the suitcase at the time, busting the barrel? Potentially,
Yes, it's compatible with that.
Now, I want to draw your attention to the cardiovascular system. Hey, do you have your report?
I did.
Okay. You described the proximal third of the left anterior descending coronary artery having greater than a 75% narrowing of the lumen due to eccentrically
We don't know what none of this shit means.
Atherosclerotic plaque.
Yes,
And is that pretty much verbatim with what you said in the report?
yes,
And that terminology is synonymous with a single vessel high-grade atherosclerotic coronary artery disease.
yes,
And in that location, it's kind of a classic location for what people refer to as the widowmaker.
yes.
because of location in that vessel that supplies most of the circulation to the left ventricle?
Yes.
If you had spasm in that artery, that could nearly totally obstruct the lumen and cause a fatal heart attack, could it not?
It could cause a dysrhythmia, I guess.
I'm sorry,
A dysrhythmia or abnormal beating of the heart.
but that could kill it.
It could.
The lumen is the inside space of the tubular structure.
Yes,
And so that was blocked, over 75%.
it was. But there was no evidence of myocardial scarring. So when the vessels become blocked, you prevent blood from getting to the muscle of the heart. So there was no evidence that there was any scarring. There was no evidence that there was anything that happened acutely. When that happens, we can see changes in the actual muscle of the heart. So there were no changes suggestive of that.
Let me ask you something. If he were to get out of the suitcase on his own and he would have passed out or fell asleep on the couch and she would have woken up the next day about that time and came down, he was dead on the couch, and you did this autopsy, would it be fair to say that in your ruling on cause of death, that single vessel coronary artery osteosclerosis would be your probable cause of death?
It could be, but any sort of injury overrides natural disease if the injury is significant. Right? So you don't have to be a perfectly healthy person to have trauma and die. So it's very common that we see people that have injuries for whatever reason, but also have a lot of natural disease. But we look at it as the injuries override the natural disease because, especially atherosclerotic disease, that's considered long term. Right? So that's been going on for years and years. People walk around with that all the time. So what's different is that we have the trauma, and so that overrides natural disease. And sometimes natural disease can contribute, but again, it depends on the individual. It depends on the circumstances.
So after the positional asphyxia or the environmental asphyxia, and he was dead, and you did the autopsy, it would be fair to say that you would determine this was a natural death from an isolated coronary heart disease, would you not?
It would depend on the circumstances. And I can't speculate on this case because I know what I know about it.
If you had nothing else, the widowmaker would have caused his death, or he would have to have assumed, having nothing else, that would have caused his death.
I most likely would have given him cardiovascular disease.
Now, this ethanol metabolism that we talked about earlier, and there's a question about you believing he was in the elimination phase, correct?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that George Torres, the decedent, was in the elimination phase since the blood ethanol was below the vitreous value?
Yes.
Given the vitreous value was a 213, is it justified in saying the decedent's blood ethanol level was at least a 0.213 prior to starting the elimination phase?
Yes.
And now you know that the normal elimination rate is, I believe, 0.015% per hour.
Yes.
Is that standard?
It's an estimate.
And so we have a difference of a 0.138 to the 213. So roughly 5 hours of elimination. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
So in other words, you agree there's a short interval where the vitreous and the blood are identical.
Yes.
And then the blood drops beneath the vitreous value as ethanol is metabolized in the blood.
Yes.
So is it fair to say, given the significant difference in the blood and the vitreous ethanol values, that the true vitreous and blood ethanol level had to be much higher than what is reported in your report at the time that he passed?
At the time that he passed? No, this is reflective of the time that he passed.
Say again?
This is reflective, the 0.139, that's reflective of the time that he passed. There's not metabolism after death.
Okay.
Of the alcohol.
Well, let me, what I'm saying is, he could have been prior to that time of passing, he could have, his blood alcohol level would have been much higher.
It was at least at the same level as the
At least the
vitreous.
two,
Yes.
at least the 213.
Yes.
It could have been much higher.
It could have been, yes.
Judge, if I could first.
Okay.
This is, that's a part. It's the identification. Okay.
That's the state senator?
Yes.
We stipulate J.
Was pre-marked as defense J will be received into evidence without objection as defense 1.
There's file US. First one's from the five. What's this bit?
So that's the left hand. So you're looking at the outer surface of the hand, the knuckles, the three of the fingers. Yes.
Same for picture number 4.
So it's the same, just a little bit further away without a scale.
And here is picture number 3.
So you're looking at the thumb and the index finger.
And it shows some bruising on the hand.
Yes.
And picture number 2.
So what you're seeing here is, from the scene, our investigators put brown bags over the decedent's hands, and that's we collect evidence at the time of the autopsy. So at the scene, brown bags are put on the hands to preserve any evidence, and so that's why you're seeing this, because this is a picture that we take. We cut the bag open and we take a picture to show exactly what the hands look like.
There's bruising here.
Yes.
Also around the knuckle area.
Yes.
Fingers also on the finger.
Yes.
And here's the last picture of the 5. Which again is the left hand.
Yes.
Showing bruising on the top of the hand as well as the other.
Yes.
Hey, represent.
You were asked several questions on cross-examination about the alcohol level in this case. And I believe there was a term, metabolic phase, elimination phase. Could you just explain for us what that is?
Sure. So in the toxicology testing, there's 2 different levels that I ordered for levels of alcohol. One is they look in the blood to see the level of alcohol. The other is in what's called vitreous fluid or eye fluid. And we look at both areas because that can give us an idea of whether somebody is metabolizing through the alcohol or whether it's still rising. It just gives us an idea sometimes of how close to death they were when the ingestion of alcohol happened. But basically, the level in the eye fluid trails behind what we see in the blood. There will be a small point in time, as we discussed earlier, that they will be almost the same. But you can just think of it as the blood alcohol goes up, and then a brief period of time later, the alcohol on the eye fluid will start to show. So again, it's just to give us an idea of whether somebody is metabolizing or whether they're still, the level is still rising or they're still, intaking alcohol.
So the result in this case was indicative that George Torres's level was coming down.
Yes.
And I think some of the math was a little bit difficult to follow on the fly. But with that rate of dissipation, would it be fair to say that he would have been that suitcase for approximately 5 years? Because he couldn't be drinking whilst in the suitcase, that we're seeing this rate decrease between these 2 levels.
I have to be careful how you interpret it because, the numbers that I got from toxicology testing, that's from one point in time, right? We're collecting those specimens at the time of the autopsy. So that's only one point in time. It's possible, but I can't say for certain. All I can tell you is that at some point in time, his blood alcohol was at least the higher level that we saw in the vitreous fluid. So if, the calculation of the 5 hours, that's an estimate because again, everyone's a little bit different, but I think it's reasonable to say 5 hours. Yes, that's within reason to say that.
And obviously, a pretty obvious point, but we don't continue to metabolize alcohol after death.
Correct.
You were asked about studies or tests being performed on the suitcase in this case.
Correct.
Would the presence of objects in that suitcase also affect the length of time a person may have survived in that suitcase?
I guess if there were a lot of other objects in there that maybe could, occlude the mouth or nose, or maybe if that means that if there's more stuff in the suitcase, there's less room for the person. So I guess
another variable would also be present would be the opening of that zipper, would it not?
yes.
So if the zipper was further open, potentially more oxygen could be coming into that area. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, there could be more oxygen coming in, but there's always the question is, would it be enough? Right? Because you can still have oxygen there, but it may not be enough. You can put that before.
And there would be no way to know exactly how far that zipper was potentially forced open.
Correct.
I have no further questions.
It's what's be released.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll be fine. Thank you, ma'am.
Bet they finna take a break.
Thanks, Bruce, for a moment.
This is approved.
Yes.
Uh-oh, better look back up.
Research regarding the persons, places, things, or charge involved, and do not have any conversations among yourselves or anyone else.
Buildings here on the stipulation of victim identification and signed by the extra. Two-page FDLE laboratory report generated June 3rd, 2020.
That's
I need
evidence.
both of those documents, please. Thank you. Now, for
Evidence.
stipulation, pre-marked as State's Exhibit F, reads stipulation of victim identification. Reads as follows. The Assistant State Attorney, David, you have the opportunity to go over this stipulation with your attorney.
Yes.
Do you understand what the stipulation means?
Yes.
Are you freely and willingly entering into this stipulation?
I am.
Did anyone force you, threaten you, or coerce you to enter into this stipulation?
No.
All right, the court accepts the stipulation. How do we want to handle the little issue with regard to his lawyer as opposed to her lawyer?
I'm fine with the court making it to stretch out his and insert her if that's acceptable.
Is it acceptable?
Yes.
Ma'am, is that acceptable to you as well? All right, thank you. The court will make that handwritten interlineation, removing his and adding her. State you seek, we'll move this in evidence in front of the jury, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you, sir. Moving now to what was pre-marked to State's N. Ma'am, this is a stipulation of FDLE report. It reads, the Assistant State Attorney, Dave Cacciatore Jr., and defendant Sarah Boone, as well as his lawyer, James Sullivan Owens, stipulate to the admissibility into evidence at trial of the FDLE lab report authored by Carolina Benito on June 3rd. The court accepts this stipulation. Any else we need to address? State, I will return these to you for the purposes of moving them into evidence.
No. No.
All right, let's go ahead and stand and bring back in our panel. Thank you.
This judge ain't bullshit. He getting done.
Members have raised their hands. State, you may proceed with your evidence and testimony presentation.
Yes, Your Honor, at this time we'd like to move what's been remarked identification in State's F and State's N into evidence.
Any objections? What was pre-marked as State's F will be received without objection as State 14. What's been pre-marked as State's N will be received into evidence without objection as State 15.
Your Honor, we would request that they be published.
Thank you. Up to the jury, I'm going to read to you some stipulations along with an instruction. The stipulate that the admissibility into please take a seat and state and spell your name for the record for us.
My name is Meredith McCaskill, and it's spelled MEredithMcCaskill.
Thank you.
That's such a white name, Meredith.
I am employed at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the Orlando Regional Operations Center.
Is that also called FDLE?
Yes, it is.
What do you do for FDLE?
I am a senior crime laboratory analyst in the biology DNA section.
What is your educational background? We'll get into training and experience as well, but what's your educational background that allows you to do that job?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences from Clemson University and a Master of Science in Biomedical Forensic Science from the Boston University School of Medicine.
And when did you first start working for FDLE?
I started at FDLE in April of 2011.
Did you have any prior work experience as a forensic examiner of blood or biological DNA evidence?
No, I did not.
So for the last 13 years, your experience has been with the FDLE.
Yes, that's correct.
And do you have any sort of in-house training and then continuing education that goes on as an employee at FDLE?
Yes, so when you become a crime laboratory analyst, you have to successfully complete a training program. This training program takes about 1.5 to 2 years. It covers all of our policies and procedures and manuals, reading textbooks and scientific articles, and performing a lot of in-house testing and training under the supervision of a qualified analyst. There's also written and oral examinations, and you have to successfully complete every part of that in order to work cases as a crime laboratory analyst. And then every year we have continuing education. So that's education that we need to do in order to stay current with new trends and technologies in the field.
Does the lab itself enjoy any accreditations, and what process, if so, does it go through to get them?
Yes, FDLE is accredited by an organization called ANAB. It's the American National Standards Institute National Accreditation Board. So we've been accredited for, I believe, over 30 years. It's a process where every 4 years they send people to come and inspect our lab, make sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing according to our policies and procedures. And then we're also following national standards that have been set down. That's every 4 years. It's very in-depth. And then we have additional kind of like spot checks every year just to make sure that we are maintaining everything that we are supposed to be doing.
Have you ever given testimony in court about your opinion about serology analysis or DNA analysis?
Yes, I have.
Approximately how many times?
Approximately 35 to 40 times.
Have you ever not been allowed to give any testimony in those areas?
No, I have not.
Can you tell us about the place, particularly within FDLE? Tell us about your workspace and what personal protection equipment you may wear when you're doing DNA analysis.
Yes, so in my workspace, I have what I call a clean side, which is where I keep all of my paperwork. And then I have my other side, which is used for actual screening of evidence items. So this is a surface where I can clean it with a detergent. I clean all of the instruments that I'm using. So scissors, markers to take notes, anything like that is cleaned with a detergent, both before I start and after I finish. And it's cleaned and maintained in between every item of evidence. So only one item of evidence is open at a time, and this is to minimize any potential contamination. So DNA from one item getting into DNA from the second item. I also wear what is called personal protective equipment. This includes a lab coat, face mask, gloves, and potentially a hairnet, depending on what type of evidence that I'm working with. And then the gloves are disposable, so they are changed before and after each item of evidence. It's also changed if I have to touch my computer to take notes. I change my gloves. If I have to touch another surface, I change my gloves. So it's a lot of procedures that we use in order to prevent my DNA from getting onto the item of evidence.
When DNA analysis is done, are instruments used to assist you in that process?
Yes, we have an instrument platform that we use that allows us to run the DNA in batches in an efficient manner. So there's multiple instruments that are used across the varying processes.
And do these instruments generate paperwork that humans such as yourself can then go read and interpret?
Yes, it does.
Now, in this particular case, you are not the analyst who examined the items. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you review the information that is generated by the instruments used by the analyst who did this work in coming to your own conclusions?
I was the technical reviewer on this file, so I reviewed all of the documentation and the paperwork and also the original analyst report.
All right. Now, one of the items that is said to have been analyzed was a DNA card. Are you familiar with what that is?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell the jury what that is?
Usually it's referred to as a DNA card or a bloodstain card, and that's just a card where somebody can spot blood, usually human blood, on it and dry it down. Then the analyst can take a cutting of that stained area in order to generate a DNA profile.
And is that typically the manner in which a decedent or a dead person's DNA sample is provided to the lab for analysis?
Yes, that's a very common thing that we see in decedents.
And can you explain to the jury how it is an analyst such as yourself would take that blood stain on a portion of the DNA card and develop a DNA profile?
Yes, so it usually is blood stained on the card, so you can identify that stain visually. Take a cutting of that stained area and then place that cutting into a sterile tube, which is then sent through the DNA process. So that's adding chemicals and heat in order to break the cells open and release the DNA into the solution, and then running it through the rest of the procedures where we determine about how much DNA is in the sample, make millions of copies of our specific areas of interest, and then generate a DNA profile that can be used for comparison to any questioned items in the case.
Do you use some sort of commercial kit to develop DNA profiles on known items such as this?
Yes, we do.
Approximately how many locations back in 2020 would have been tested on the DNA card?
In 2020, it was 21 locations.
And going through this process, is there a process that amplifies the amount of DNA?
Yes, there is.
Can you describe that?
Yes, so we need to amplify or make millions of copies of the specific areas of interest that we're looking for. We don't want to make copies of the entire DNA molecule. We're just wanting to isolate those specific 21 areas and make copies of those specific areas in order to generate the DNA profile. That we
Millions
use
of
in forensic
copies
DNA
sounds
analysis.
really, really complex.
Do you know what a short tandem repeat is?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
Short tandem repeat, we also call them STRs. That's just what we're looking for in the forensic DNA analysis. There are small, short areas of repeating DNA pieces. So, for example, at somebody's DNA profile at a specific
Morning,
location,
Clown.
you can have a set of 16 repeats and a set of 17 repeats.
Clown, I need one of them boosters you told Truth to get. Hit my line. I need whatever you told her to get because I'm having the same problem.
And that's just this one little piece of DNA, and it repeats 16 times. And then you have a piece that repeats 16 times. And it's the number of repeats that is different from person to person.
And you said you might get 16 at one spot and 17. Let's just be clear on what we're talking about. On one particular location, or all of them, do you get DNA from mom and dad? Can you explain that?
Yes, so you get DNA from your parents. So it's inherited. You get half of your DNA from your mom and half from your dad. So when I'm talking about the short tandem repeats and the example of a 16 and a 17, that could mean that you got a set of 16 repeats from one parent and a set of 17 repeats from the other parent. So it's just the copies that you get from your parents.
And you might have enough 16 from each.
Yes, that's also a possibility.
All right, so the chemicals end up copying about, you said 21 areas in 2020?
Yes, so there's 21, and then we look at several areas that are on the gender marker. So 3 areas on the gender markers.
And each of these locations will come up with some sort of number like 16, 17, 4, 4, so on and so forth.
Yes, that's correct.
Were you able, in reviewing the instrumentation data in this case, was the DNA profile that was said to have come from Mr. Torres, was there able to be a full DNA profile of those 21 locations developed?
Yes, a complete profile was obtained for that sample.
Now, can you tell us what a buckle or a buccal swab? Sometimes people call it each. Which way is the right?
I usually use the word buccal, but buccal is not incorrect either.
What is that?
It's just a swab that we can use as a reference sample from a person. So it looks, all of our swabs just kind of look like a long Q-tip with only one end. And then you just take that cotton tip in and rub it on the interior of your mouth to get a good DNA sample. You have a lot of cells on the inside of your mouth and a lot of saliva. So that's a good source to use for a known sample from a person.
And these long Q-tips, I believe, as you described, are they put into a box that is designed in a way so that the Q-tip doesn't touch the edges of the box?
Yes, I've seen it in boxes like that, but I have also seen it where they've been put back into the original paper packet container. So either method is fine.
And did the FDLE in this particular case, in the data that you reviewed, was there buccal swabs represented as being from the defendants here?
Yes, there was.
And in the process that you briefly described for the jury already, can you just tell us if it's different in any way to take a part of that cotton swab to develop a DNA profile than a piece of the DNA paper?
No, it's the same process. With the buccal swabs, I'm just taking a small cutting of the cotton area of the swab, placing it in a tube, and then running it through the exact same DNA process.
And was a full profile of the 21 locations able to be developed for the buccal swabs represented as being from Ms. Boone?
Yes, a complete profile was obtained for that sample.
Were there also what we call unknown samples that were examined in this case?
Yes, there were.
Can you describe the difference between a known and an unknown sample for the jury?
Yes, a known sample is a sample from a specific person. So that's like the example of a buccal swab. I know that sample came from that individual, and I can use that as a way to determine that particular person's DNA profile. An unknown sample is just a sample where we don't know whose DNA or if there is any DNA on that sample at all. So those are question items that can be, once a DNA profile is obtained from that item, can be compared to the known profiles obtained from individuals.
And in this case, was there an unknown item labeled as DNA swab representative coming from Mr. Torres's fingernails?
I believe it was fingernail clippings from Mr. Torres, yes.
All right, and typically, I know you didn't do the work on this particular case, but reviewing the notes and in your experience, do these DNA samples from fingernail clippings come in as swabs, like a buccal swab?
And so sometimes they can come in as swabs, but other times they come in as just fingernail clippings, so taking the clippers and just cutting off the ends of the fingernails. And then I've also seen it where they've been scraped using pointed sticks.
And so if there is a swab that came in represented as being from fingernails, then that goes through the process that as you previously described for the buccal swabs?
Yes, that's correct.
And if it comes in as fingernails or scrapings, do you all have to make your own swabs?
Yes, that's correct.
would you go about doing it?
We have prepackaged swabs in our lab. We can then use some sterile deionized water and drip that onto the end of the cotton tip to make it a little bit moist so that it can pick up any DNA that is left on the item. And then we just swab the surface of the item, allow the swab to dry, and then cut it and place it into a tube for the DNA process. So we're just making our own swabs at that point.
And was there a profile obtained from what was represented as being a DNA sample of Mr. Torres' fingernail clippings?
Yes, there was.
And did it match either of the two known profiles that we just discussed here this morning?
Yes, it did.
Which one?
Mr. Torres.
Were there any results indicating foreign DNA on this item?
No, there were no DNA results foreign to Mr. Torres obtained from either set of fingernail clippings.
Likewise, was there something examined in this case represented to be swabs or DNA samples from Ms. Boone, the defendant's fingernails?
Yes, those were swabs that were sent represented as being from her fingernails.
And so just like the bottle swabs that come in as a Q-tip, and then you would test that in a similar manner?
Yes, that's correct.
Was a profile able to be developed from what was represented as being swabs from Ms. Boone's fingernails?
Yes, there was.
And did that profile match either of the two known profiles that we've been discussing this morning?
Yes, it did.
And whose was that?
Miss Sims.
Now, in regards to both of these last items that we talked about, the fingernail swabs from each Mr. Torres and Ms. Boone, is it expected that their profile would be developed from DNA swabs from their fingernails?
Yes, it is. All of those samples were represented as being from those particular individuals, so their DNA is expected to be on those items.
Was there any DNA foreign to Ms. Boone on those samples that were represented as coming from her fingernails?
No, there were no DNA results foreign to Miss Boone obtained from either set of fingernail swabs.
Now, with this amplification process that you described, is it PCR?
Yes, it is.
How sensitive is it when a sample is taken from an unknown area, such as fingernails?
The PCR process is pretty sensitive, and over the years, as the science has evolved and testing has changed, the process has become even more sensitive over the years.
And hypothetically, if two people are living together and are intimate partners, quite frankly, would you expect the intimate partner's DNA to show up on swabbings from their fingernails?
Yes, it's possible that their DNA would show up if they're in close contact with each other.
But in this particular case, after reviewing all of the instrumentation data, there was no DNA foreign to either of their fingernail clippers, both clippings or swabs from their fingernails, both Mr. Torres and Ms. Boone.
Yes, that's correct.
No other questions?
Any cross-examination?
The black guy finally speaks.
Good morning, man.
Good morning.
Once you develop a profile, are you able to take that profile and compare it to other possible DNA on objects or items?
Well, if it's a DNA profile that is obtained from a questioned item, we can compare that to profiles from known individuals.
And in this case, an example of that, if an object from an unknown source, you could take that and compare it to a known profile. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And if you get a match with that comparison, what can you take from that?
Just that is the DNA profiles are the same.
So if it's an object, let's say like a bat, and there's a DNA profile that's obtained from the bat, and it matches a known profile, could you make the conclusion that that person touched or handled that bat from the known profile?
No, I can't. There's nothing in the testing that we do at FDLE that will allow me to determine how any DNA ended up on an object or how long it's been on that object.
Now, you said that in this case, what was sent for DNA comparison?
In this case, it was a blood stain card or a DNA card represented as being from Mr. Torres, buccal swabs represented as being from Miss Boone, fingernail clippings from both hands represented as being from Mr. Torres, and then fingernail swabs from both hands represented as being from Miss Boone.
Those are the only items that were sent to your lab for comparison.
Those were the only items sent to the DNA lab, yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Director. No redirection can be excused as far as the state's concerned.
So that's,
Yes.
fine. And your excuse. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. Up out of there quick.
Take me, call your next witness.
I've lost count of how many witnesses they've called already.
First name is Janella, Junella. Last name is Wadden, UAD as in Delta, AN.
This court,
May proceed, sir.
where do you work, ma'am?
I'm currently employed with the Orange County Sheriff's Office here in Orlando, Florida.
What is
She
your-
like white and Asian.
I'm currently, my current position is a digital forensic examiner.
And how long have you held that position?
I just hit 6 years.
And can you tell us about, we're gonna break it down, education, training, and experience. Let's just talk about your education. What's your educational background prior to becoming a law enforcement officer? In particular, what is relevant to being a digital forensic examiner?
I actually started in crime scene investigations with the Sheriff's Office. So I have a bachelor's in forensic science through the University of Central Florida. Upon transferring over to our digital forensics unit, I became a certified computer forensic examiner through the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists.
That's IACIS?
ISIS, yes.
Do we call it ISIS?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
How do you say it?
ISIS.
ISIS. All right, I just want to shorten it for today.
Yes.
All right, so IASIS. Tell us about that program that you went through with IASIS to become a digital forensic examiner.
Yeah, the beginning portion of it is in classroom training. It's normally only hosted in 2 different locations around the world, one being here in Orlando, the other one normally being somewhere over in Europe. They actually just expanded a 3rd location over in Australia. So again, the first 2 weeks are in classroom training, normally with over 300 other students. And then the next 5 to 6 months are all a peer review type training where they give you problem sets on how to, it goes from basic education on computer forensics to how to recover data, could be pictures, could be videos. You're not sure until you pass one step to move on to the next one to figure out what you're essentially what kind of questions you're going to get.
All right. I'm going to take a break from education training experience for 1 second. On February 23rd, 2020, were you called out to a scene?
Yes.
Does that happen from time to time as a digital forensic examiner as opposed to your previous duties like CSI, which you would always go to the scene?
Yeah, as a digital forensic examiner, we are required to come out on scenes if requested.
May I approach the witness with leave identification?
You may.
How is it that you recognize that?
I recognize the front label or the portion filled out on the envelope with my handwriting, as well as evidence tape sealed, also initialed with my initials.
And the information on it includes like your case number and some of the other information you just answered.
Yeah, case number, date of collection, and the item description.
And what is said to be contained inside of that envelope?
An Apple iPhone model XS with a pink case.
All right. And if I am not incorrect, I believe there's 2 sets of evidence tape on that item.
Yes.
Can you tell us about each set?
First set, which is the red tape here. Initially, when I collect or sometimes when we receive items from crime scene investigators, the packaging necessarily doesn't have to be sealed, just because the phone might have to be kept charged on prior to us receiving the phone. So in this case, I did collect the item from the residence. I brought it back to our office. And then once I was done with my exam, it later gets sealed, again with my initials and dates. And if there's a later on an evidence review or somebody needs to review the item again, if they need to do an additional examination, the package will be reopened and then sealed again, hence the blue tape here at the bottom.
Other than the blue tape, is that item and the packaging substantially in the same condition when you were done examining what is said to be contained inside?
Yes.
If you would, could you open up this package and without showing it to the jury at this point, see if you recognize what's inside of the envelope?
Yes, there's a phone with a pink case inside.
Do you recognize that as the item that you collected from the scene that you went to on February 23rd, 2020, and then later examined?
Yes.
All right. So, this scene, February 23rd, 2020, where is this scene?
I believe it's 4740, or can I refer to my report for the address or the numerical?
If we refresh your memory.
Yes.
Go ahead, and then when you're done refreshing memory, let us know if your memory was refreshed.
Yes. The
Memory refreshed.
Yes.
What's your answer?
4748 Brand, not sure if I'm saying that correct, court, apartment number 3.
Now, I know you work for the sheriff's office in Orange County, but I still need to ask, is this in Orange County, Florida?
Yes.
All right. Now, you collected that item. May I leave for identification and evidence at this time? Any objections? No objection?
What was pre-marked as E will be received into evidence without objection. State 16.
Did you do anything with that item while you were on scene?
Yeah.
What is it that you did with that item while you were on scene?
I was requested to come out. I was informed from the detectives that the user of the device gave consent for us to download her phone. So I responded out, and once I located the phone, I immediately started to extract the data from the phone.
All right. So now let's talk about what tools you use to do that. I assume there's some software involved with this process.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your familiarity and the training that you had in regards to using that software back in the time of February 2020?
Yes. One of the main tools that we use for data extraction is called Cellbrain. I did obtain, again, transitioning to our digital forensics unit, I obtained 2 certificates with Cellbrain, which is an operator certificate knowing how to operate the hardware and the extraction software, as well as a certificate in their physical analyzer software, which is more used for the analysis part. So once we download the phone, we get a digital file, which to us is a lot of data, which humans, we can't read. So their software basically makes it more readable for us humans, which we can then generate a report in different formats for review. So in this case, we used Cellbrain. They actually started to develop software for cell phone companies. So if you remember back in the day when you went to go upgrade your phone and you had to go into a brick and mortar store, they actually had the software to help transfer your old data from your old phone and transfer it to your new phone, like your contacts, your pictures, your videos, a lot of the data that you didn't want to lose when upgrading your phone. But they are now a predominantly digital forensics company, and they provide the software that we use to extract data off of digital.
Is there any hardware involved to use this software?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, in this case, and especially at that time, we had 2 options. There was a portable tablet. In this case, you can still use a computer, and they have sister software that mirrors the exact same software that's on the portable tablet. So in this case, I had my call-out laptop with the extraction software installed on it, and just like you would to connect your phone to, let's say, your computer to export photos or take photos off of your phone if you want to save them. We're doing essentially the exact same thing in the field where we're connecting it to our computer, and we're letting the software pull all that data or the contents off of that phone.
When you were told that you had Ms. Boone's password to your phone device, do you do anything to try and make sure that the data cannot be manipulated or destroyed from the outside world?
Yes, it's standard protocol. Like once we receive a phone, hopefully somebody did it before it's handed to us. But again, if we're responding out to the scene or we're the only ones that are interacting with the phone, we for sure try to, if we are given a passcode, we try to confirm the passcode. And then the phone is immediately put into airplane mode, which will disconnect it from any outside network. And we also try to ensure, because not always, once you place your phone into airplane mode, it doesn't always turn off your Bluetooth and or Wi-Fi connections. So we may go in and make sure that those settings are also disabled before we extract the data.
All right, take us through this extraction process. I understand that there are many different levels of information that you can get depending on a lot of things that you'll tell us about. Can you tell us the level of extraction you were able to do on site with this cellular phone device?
Yes, for this specific phone, we were trying to minimally get the user data, again, the stuff that you guys can see when you're looking for your phone, your calls, your messages, your pictures, your videos. And in this case, that's the level of support that the on-scene software that we're able to use is able to download from the phone, especially when
all these witnesses are pointless. I wish they would just get to the good shit.
So I think we're all familiar with Windows.
Hey, Victoria.
I think Mac has its own special iOS operating system as well. Can you tell us about the operating system that was on this particular cellular phone device?
Yes, Apple has its own operating system, iOS if you have an iPhone, and of course, even if you have Android or Apple, you're constantly getting notifications saying it's time to update your phone to the newest software. So in this case, it's an iPhone, so it's running the shortened version of iOS.
Can you also extract data that has been quote unquote deleted from the operating system? And can you just tell us all about that?
Yes, it is sometimes a possibility. It's not always guaranteed, but we sometimes have more advanced tools that can potentially pull that data from the device. And then later, once we get that download, we can put it into that software and normally will give us indications on whether or not data has been deleted.
And so if a particular photograph or a Word document or some sort of file has been deleted from the operating system, may it still remain on the phone device or computer device?
Yes.
It may still be locatable with your software tools.
That is the hope. Again, not always guaranteed, but again, that's why we're trying to go in there and look for that the data behind the scenes to see if we can recover those artifacts. Yes.
Did you later do another extraction of this phone device back in the office?
Yes.
And tell us if it is different in any way, how your software or hardware is different than doing it at the office.
Yeah. In this case, we use again a more advanced tool, which is able to capture the technical term is a full file system. So we're capturing that whole filing tab, you would say, of the data stored on the phone, with again the probability to not only collect possibly deleted data, but also your systems information, application data like your social media, messaging apps, everything aside from your normal user data, like again your calls and messages and pictures and videos.
What level of capture? If you answered it now, I'm sorry. What level of capture were you able to do?
Again, in this case, I was able to do the full file system back at the office. On scene, it's the technical term is an advanced logical or logical extraction, again, which encompasses your generic user data on your phone.
And the level of extraction you did at the office, is that encompass data that is outside the operating system or in unallocated space?
It can include that data, yes.
Now, what kind of information will be generated by this computer software tool that you use to make it presentable for a human such as yourself or the members of the jury to review?
Yeah, in the software, it will place the data in data categories. So it's organized. We can, if we just want to search between messages, we can go in the messages category. If we want to look at logs, like maybe data that your phone's recording, like locations, app activity, that's also presented in its own data category. And it also has the ability to put all that data in chronological order in what they refer to as the timeline. So we can also see all that ongoing data in the timeline section. And if we need to, we can either narrow down to a small scope of time, or if it's requested, we can pull all the data, all in that timeline to whoever wants to review it.
And for instance, if there's an entry on the timeline that says, April 1st, 2016, photograph ABC was taken, are there separate folders that are generated by the software tool that has all the images such as that still photograph generated?
Yes, when we export it or generate in a PDF version of that report, all that data is categorized in the PDF, but it also exports a copy of that same data, such as images and videos in separate subfolders. So if I just wanted to go look at the pictures from the phone directly, I can just go into that subfolder and just look at all thousands of images that might be exported from the phone.
And is there identifying information such as an IMEI that is generated by the software tool? Can you tell us what these things are?
Yes, the IMEI is one identifier that your cell phone has to help authenticate it to your cell phone network. It also is like a serial number unique to your phone. And in this case, our software is able to read and report all those device identifiers from your phone, including an IMEI.
And do you take actual photographs of the cellular phone device like the exhibit we just put into evidence to document it before or after you do the extraction?
Yeah, it's just like in crime scene, cell phone digital evidence is essentially another form of evidence. So we always try to document the current state, condition, whether it's locked, unlocked, and if we, again, in this case, we were provided a passcode. So I normally like to photographically document the phone's identifiers or accounts that may be logged into the phone.
Prior to trial, were you asked to look at two different exhibits to see if they represented a portion of that timeline you described that can be put into the PDF report form, as well as some of the images and videos from this extraction that you performed on the device that's in evidence?
Yes.
Okay. What I'm showing you first is O for identification. Did you have an opportunity to review that this morning to make sure that the portion of the PDF and the images, separate folder there, were part of the extraction that you did on this device?
Yes.
And was that accurate?
Yes.
P for identification, is that another carve out of the PDF timeline as well as videos and photographs from that device?
Yes.
All right, this time the state will move O for identification and evidence and reserve function.
With regard to states O.
No objection.
All right, what was pre-marked as states O will be received into evidence without objection at state 17.
All right, can publish?
You may.
Little extraction.
Looking at
It's just an assigned number, just like a line item number for the report. Because again, this is an excerpt. There could be thousands and thousands of line items when you're looking at the entire timeline. So the far left-hand column is just a line item number, followed by again the data category for whatever data you're looking at. In this case, there's a couple listed as application usage and then location data.
I didn't forgot about the last 2 Thursday night
Let's
games.
talk about the column that has dates and times. And can you explain to us what UTC -5 means?
Yes. Another column, again, we're looking at a timeline, so we want to know dates and times. So we'll include the date and time of the data that was recorded onto the phone. And this report was adjusted for our local Eastern Standard Time here in Orlando, Florida, so UTC -5.
And going up to the top line there, 31075. That indicates that there's a start time for the application com.apple.camera, and then going back to our original one, 31079, that's the end time. Can you tell us what that means?
Yeah, so Apple is very good about recording activity on the directly from your device. When you open up a certain application, such as the camera, Apple is making note that you, in this case, it's indicating a start time. So you opened up your camera at 10:21:36 p.m. And then you stopped using it, maybe closed it out or stopped recording at 10:21:38 p.m.
And in this portion of the PDF timeline, there does not appear to have been any videos or photographs captured while the camera was open. Is that accurate?
Based on that excerpt, I don't see a recorded media file.
All right. And the surrounding entries, can we just talk about what I would unfairly probably call spam of locations? What is going on there?
Again, if there's usage, application usage, or you're just in a really good location, or your device is just set to record locations wherever you are, your phone is also recording that data as well. And in some cases, like again, your phone, if you have it set for your camera to record your location when you take a picture, again, like when you reopen that picture, it'll show you, hey, you were located at 2500 West Colonial Drive. That's that data that's being recorded in the background while you're using that application that might have that permission to record that data.
Can we just go column by column through the first entry here, 16498? What does instant messages mean?
That's referencing text.
Outgoing. Indicators and outgoing.
Like one entry, one message. Don't see the
time of our
first row of data. It's indicative as a text message because the sender is listing the phone number being used to send that message. And then for iPhone devices specifically, if you're communicating with another Apple device, it may also list the phone number as well as your backup, which is your Apple ID. So if it can't transmit that message through your phone number, it might default to your iCloud account. And in this case, it's listing both.
Right, and if, for instance, the outgoing recipient or the incoming sender of the text message is in the contacts, would it show up with the person's name, such as Juancho?
Yes, our software will display your contact name. That's how you save it.
And if there's no contact name, it would just show the phone number?
Phone number or, again, Apple, your iCloud account.
Videos, 16499, capture time, what does that indicate?
So that is when the video, in this case, looks like a video, is captured on the device.
Let's specifically talk about entry 16520. Again, we've discussed that's an instant message and it's incoming rather than outgoing. So that means it came to this phone device.
Yeah.
And over to the right, the date and time, which would have been 6:07 p.m. 30 seconds on Christmas 2019. It indicates that it's from a contact named Mo. Is that accurate?
Right.
Then the contents speak for itself. Going down to 16522, an outgoing instant message at 11:31 p.m. 57 seconds on Christmas 2019. What is the content of that communication?
The content of the message is hide and seek. I shall.
This here is. Let me see when they get
Turning down
on
to
to this.
text message.
Of you two, I'll get rid of him.
Content of that text message?
What was the line number?
17167.
And bless you and all of you too, I'll get rid of him.
And then the next three are also outgoing messages. What do they indicate as far as content?
I'll start with 17168, then I'll be better, followed by 17169, Ugh, and 17170, Torres.
Turning now to entry 31103, which is on page 49 of the 59-page PDF. Again, it looks like what we talked about before, the com.camera application gets opened up to be used at 11:12 p.m. 40 seconds. Is that what this data reflects?
Yes.
And then at entry 31107, a video that ends up being captured as IMG_1062.mov begins at 11:12 p.m. 45 seconds on February 23rd, 2020. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then there does not seem to be any intervening closing of the camera application before we get to 31113.
In that portion, I don't see that information.
And then at 11:23 p.m. 03 seconds on February 23rd, 2020, in entry 31113, a second movie is generated by this device labeled IMG_1063.mov.
Yes.
Why we care what movies they're watching?
I'm going to continue publishing on this exhibit.
I think they're playing the audio from the video she had on her cell phone.
For everything you've done to me. For everything you've done to me. Fuck you. Fuck you. Stupid. That's my name. Don't worry about it.
I can't fucking breathe, baby.
That's when you do it, show me.
He realized it wasn't a good idea at this point.
That's on you. It's on you. Real. You might want to give it for it. Real.
Yeah, then they can't move his arms or nothing. Cause he ain't trying to wiggle around or nothing.
Fuck you. You should probably shut the fuck up.
For the record, that was IMG_1062.mov, now publishing 1063, same respective file name.
And her dumb ass recorded this shit.
At least to download.
What type of phone was this?
Apple iPhone XS.
And how were you able to get into the phone?
I was provided with the
All right, I'm ending it after the defense gets through cross-examining her.
Being given that passcode, are you able to get in an Apple phone?
maybe not necessarily unlock the phone, even though that is an option through some of our advanced tools that is supported. But it can have the ability to download the phone even in a locked state and pull 85% of that data.
It's a much easier process when you have the code.
It's quicker, yes.
And how will you provide that?
I believe either through Detective Coxel or Connolly at the time, or I may have asked Ms. Boone just to reconfirm the passcode.
And did she give you the passcode?
Yeah, somebody did, yeah.
Now, on the first exhibit that went out, when you're talking about the communications for the identifying factors of the phone, one of the things that were identified is dates and times. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. Also, you said it would tell you if the source was incoming or outgoing. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And then you said it would identify, it could identify either by phone number or name. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. On the examples that you gave us, who is the identifying name to the outgoing on this phone?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Who is the identifying name for the outgoing text or calls on this phone?
I think in some of the line items that were shown above, it was just listed as a phone number.
Was there ever a name listed?
Physical name, possibly in other line items, but in those excerpts, it's just by phone number.
Okay. Did you ever see the name Brian Boone?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you see the name Brian Boone?
I believe in one of the iCloud or accounts that was logged into the phone, there was an associated email address.
No, taking that, was it any other place where you would see a different name as to the outcome other than Brian Boone?
Now, again, there might have been other names listed in other portions of it. But again, those excerpts, it was just either by phone number or, again, with the Apple iPhone listing, the
do you have a copy of the exhibit out there?
no, not on me.
You don't move that forward, please.
Oh, made him went to the bench. Are we done questioning her?
Yes.
More approaching.
Yes.
There's an entry on 12/25/2019. Is that correct?
Are you referencing like the instant message row? Yes. Yes.
Does it, as far as participants, what does that show you? What does it tell you?
So it's listing the owner in reference to we'll say the first phone number, 8684. It's referencing phone number as well as the Gmail account or iCloud account associated with the phone, and then it's listing a physical name. So Brian Boone.
Okay. Brian Boone is being the owner of the phone. Is that correct?
For that phone number and or one of the participants in that message conversation.
Did you recall seeing any other name associated with that phone number other than Brian Boone?
I'm not understanding the question.
All right, well, you did the analysis of this, and you would look for the participants and get that information, match it up with the phone number. And in certain cases, they will show you the owner name because you said Apple was very detailed in some of their
Yes.
applications. So did you ever see another name associated with this account other than Brian Boone?
There was another logged in on the physical phone.
Okay.
There was no name tag.
There was no name. Okay. Now, when you're identifying these sources as being either outgoing or incoming sources, and is that basically telling you what device is being used?
It's not indicative of a specific device other than, outgoing. Obviously the source is the phone that we extracted that data from. In incoming messages, it does not let us know if the message was made through a Samsung Galaxy or another iPhone.
Okay. What identifying information do you get at that time?
In regards to receiving a message, in this case, or what's displayed there, it's going to give us the content of the message. It's going to give us the date and time that the message was sent or received. And again, like in your phone, it does depict either through a small notification arrows indicating ingoing or outgoing. So it's just displaying that version in text up there.
And then from there, it's basically telling you the number that it came from. Is that correct?
Yes, like in reference to that top row, it's saying that message came from that phone number. Again, the top line item, last 4 digits is 8684. And then it's also listing the message participants.
It's not telling you the person who sent the message, is it?
Correct. Just that it's originating from a phone number.
So if 2 people or more people had access to a phone, you wouldn't, from this information, you wouldn't be able to tell who actually sent the message on any given time. Is that correct?
No, I'm not a fly on the wall and I can't see who's physically typing our messages.
Thank you, ma'am. No further questions.
Any redirect examination?
Other than just your subjective interpretation given the context of conversations.
Come on, redirect.
Photographs or videos are taken during these conversations that would be indicative of who is behind the phone device as well.
Based on sound and visuals, it does help.
Thank you.
It's what is be released.
As far as the state is concerned, yes, sir.
Yes, you are. All right, ma'am, you're released. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, any other witnesses or evidence to call?
Not the morning presentation.
All right. Members of our jury, it is 12:21. At this point in time, we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break. I'm going to ask you to report back here at 2 o'clock at 12A, the Orange County Courthouse. I'm going to give you a similar instruction as the same instruction I read to you last week.
All right, y'all. That's a great stopping point for us. And let's see, when they come back, we only got 4 more hours of testimony. I'm sure it's going to be other stoppages and breaks and all of that good stuff in between. But hopefully, my goal is to finish day 2 tonight and get through day 3 tomorrow, all day tomorrow, tomorrow morning, tomorrow night, and hopefully catch up by Saturday because they're on day 5 right now. They currently live with day 5. Hopefully, I'm trying to catch up, doing them twice a day. And we'll see how that goes. I'm trying to stay focused. And yeah, that's what we're doing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, to the next episode. We out. See y'all at Truth Hurts in less than 30 minutes. State gang the mob. We in too deep. MoneyBoy Trey, Looney Tune melodies. Let's go. I can take a bitch if I want. Take her down, send her back in the morning. Purple kush, purple drink like Bonnie. Black op shit, got gun like the Hummer. Bulletproof vest, cause nigga wanna harm it. No conversation, you ain't talking about the money. I die about mine, never take nothing from it. I die about mine, never take nothing from it. I can take a bitch if I want. Take her down, send her back in the morning. Purple kush, purple drink like Bonnie. Black op shit, got gun like the Hummer. Bulletproof vest, cause nigga wanna harm it. No conversation, you ain't talking about money. I die about mine, never take nothing from it. I die about mine, never take nothing from it. Hey, little nigga, I was trapping out the Carter. Single parent home, being willing, I'm a father. Money go get it, I ain't never been a quitter. Had to be the breadwinner for my sons and my daughter. Make it real fun, blue eyes, 20 pointer. I can take a bitch if I want it. Take it down, send her back in the morning. Purple kush, purple drink like Bonnie. Black op shit, got gun like Army. Bulletproof vest, cause nigga wanna harm me. No conversation, you ain't talking about money. I die about mine, never take nothing from me. State to state, moving weight, we're running. Post sales, get broke by the 100. No consignment, no be on the front. Camera on it, Birdman and stun. Bitch, stop catting, you ain't talking about nothing. Jacking up the trend on the time, hit your bust. Look with the pussy, but you never gotta touch it. Came down the middle, but you had to make a bust it. How you getting money, but a flatter than your budget? All that man talk
cut this shit. All the player talk, so you know we need to cut it. Throwing check and start crying and public. You a bitch. Nigga dick so a bitch cannot suck. You a bitch. You need to be saying you disgusting. You a bitch. Bitch, you a lame, you a dust. You a bitch. Why you stay sweaty? You must. You a bitch. You ain't from the streets, you a pussy. Oh, need a dick ass nigga. I can take a bitch if I want it. Take her down, send her back in the morning. Purple kush, purple drink like Bonnie. Black op shit, got gun like the Hummer. Bulletproof vest, case a nigga wanna harm me. No conversation, you ain't talking about the money. I die about mine, never take nothing from it. I die about mine, never take nothing from it. I can take a bitch if I want it. Take her down, send her back in the morning. Purple kush, purple drink like Bonnie. Black op shit, got gun like the Hummer. Bulletproof vest, case a nigga wanna harm me. No conversation, you ain't talking about money. I die about mine, never take nothing from it. I die about mine, never take nothing from it.
Hey, no, that's not cool though. That's not cool. You wanna take me a ride, man? Clip my motherfucking head, cause I can't believe a motherfucker I really cared about, I really loved you at one point, G. Like low key. Like, come on now. Like low key, G. You think it was cool for your friend to get up there and expose everything you told him about me? That wasn't cool. You know that wasn't cool for real. That wasn't what's up. That wasn't what's up. That shit triggered the fuck out of me because that was wacky. You know it was wacky. Fuck my kid. You know that shit was wacky. Let me take me a drive, G. This shit getting out of hand, G.